Step into Hercule Mysteries, where Agatha Christie's Hercule Poirot solves baffling cases.
Chapter 9. The Trap. The sixth day at Greystone Manor brought with it a restless air, as if the very walls of the estate sensed the approaching climax of the mystery. The police, under Inspector Grayson's relentless direction, had tightened their grip on Sir Reginald Haverford, whose arrest had done little to quell the unease among the guests. The discovery of Julian Warrender's pocket watch in Reginald's room, coupled with the overheard argument, had cemented Grayson's belief in his guilt. But Hercule Poirot remained unconvinced, his sharp mind focused on the subtle threads that wove through the case. The notebook, the pearl earring, the cryptic letter, and the crescent symbol that seemed to tie them together. Captain Hastings, standing in the Manor's conservatory, watched as Poirot paced slowly among the potted orchids, his hands clasped behind his back, his eyes distant with thought. The conservatory, with its glass walls and lush greenery, felt like a sanctuary, yet the weight of the investigation pressed heavily on Hastings' mind. "Poirot," he said, breaking the silence, "you've got that look again. You're planning something, aren't you?" Poirot's mustache twitched, a faint smile playing at his lips. "Mon ami, you know me well. Yes, I am planning a trap, to be precise. The killer, they are clever, but they are not infallible. They have woven a web of lies, but a web can be shaken. And when it is, the spider will reveal itself." Hastings frowned. "A trap? What kind?" Poirot stopped pacing, his gaze sharp. "A gathering, Hastings. Tonight, we shall bring all the players together. Lady Margaret, Eleanor, Beatrice, Clara, Dr. Langley, and even Sir Reginald, if the inspector permits. I shall present the facts, the clues, and a theory that will provoke a reaction. The guilty one, they will betray themselves, if only by a glance, a word, a moment of panic." Hastings' eyes widened. "You're going to accuse someone?" "Not accuse," Poirot corrected. "Suggest. The truth, it is like a delicate flower, it must be coaxed into bloom, and tonight we shall apply just the right pressure." The plan was set in motion with the cooperation of Lady Margaret, who, despite her reservations, agreed to host a formal gathering in the drawing room that evening. Inspector Grayson, though skeptical, allowed Sir Reginald to attend under guard, grumbling that Poirot's theatrics were a waste of time. As the hour approached, the Manor's atmosphere grew taut, the guests moving with the wariness of those who sensed a reckoning. At precisely 8 o'clock, the drawing room was filled with the principal players, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of candelabras. Lady Margaret sat rigidly, her hands folded in defiance. Dr. Langley leaned against the wall, his calm demeanor unshaken, and Sir Reginald, flanked by a constable, glowered from a corner. Inspector Grayson stood near the door, his arms crossed, watching Poirot with barely concealed impatience. Poirot stepped into the center of the room, his small figure commanding attention. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his voice clear and measured. "We are gathered to address the tragedy that has befallen Greystone Manor. The murder of Monsieur Julian Warrender, a crime so deliberate, so calculated, that it demands the full attention of Hercule Poirot's little gray cells. Tonight, I shall present the facts, and together, we shall see where they lead." He paused, his eyes scanning the room, noting each guest's reaction. "Let us begin with the clues. First, the dagger, ornate, rare, a collector's piece, not the weapon of a common thief. Second, the missing notebook, found in the stables, filled with cryptic entries that suggest secrets. Debts, perhaps, or betrayals. third, the pocket watch, engraved with a crescent symbol, found in Sir Reginald's room. And finally, the pearl earring, discovered near the grove where Monsieur Warrender met his end. Clara stiffened at the mention of the earring, but Poirot continued, undeterred. These clues, they tell a story. The notebook reveals that Monsieur Warrender was entangled in financial matters. Debts owed by Sir Reginald, perhaps demands made by another. The initials C.H. appear frequently, suggesting a connection to Madame Clara Haverford. Clara's eyes flashed. "I have told you, Monsieur Poirot, I had no such dealings with Julian." Poirot raised a hand. "Patience, madame. I do not accuse, I observe. The letter found by Mademoiselle Eleanor confirms a secret between you and Monsieur Warrender, a secret you begged him to keep. And the earring, found in a place you claim not to have been, suggests you were near the grove at the time of the murder." A murmur rippled through the room, and Eleanor's eyes widened. "Clara, is it true?" she whispered. Clara's composure wavered, but she held her ground. "I was at the fortune-teller's tent. I've said so from the start." Poirot nodded, turning to Sir Reginald. "And you, monsieur, were seen arguing with Monsieur Warrender about a debt. The watch, found in your room, seems to confirm your guilt. Yet, I wonder, is it too convenient? A killer who leaves such evidence is either careless or cunning." Sir Reginald's face reddened. "I'm no killer. Someone planted that watch.
Lemonade!" Poirot's eyes moved to Dr. Langley.
"And you, doctor, a man of observation, saw Madame Clara with Monsieur Warrender earlier that evening. Yet you claim to have seen nothing after 7 o'clock. Curious for one so perceptive."
Langley's expression remained impassive.
"I was tending a patient, as I said. I saw nothing of the murder."
Poirot stepped back, his voice rising slightly.
"And so we have a puzzle. A man is dead, his possessions stolen, his secrets scattered. But one detail stands out: the crescent symbol, found both on the watch and in the notebook. It is a code, a marker of a meeting, perhaps a betrayal. I propose a theory. Monsieur Warrender was lured to the grove under the pretense of a meeting, where he was struck down by someone he trusted, someone who knew his habits, his secrets."
The room grew still, the guest's eyes fixed on Poirot. He paused, then continued, his voice soft but piercing.
"I believe the killer is among us now, listening, watching. And I believe they will reveal themselves, for no lie can withstand the light of truth."
A sharp intake of breath broke the silence, and all eyes turned to Beatrice, whose face had gone deathly pale.
I can't do this anymore,"
she stammered, her voice breaking.
"I saw something that night, Monsieur Poirot. I didn't want to say, but I saw Clara near the grove just after 7. She was holding something small like a book or a watch."
Clara's face twisted with fury.
"You little liar! I was nowhere near the grove!"
Beatrice's tears spilled over.
"I'm not lying. I saw you, Clara, and you looked frightened. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to believe it."
The room erupted in chaos, with Clara shouting denials and Eleanor sobbing. Poirot raised a hand, restoring order.
"Enough," he said. "Mademoiselle Crane, your courage is noted. Madame Clara, your denials are also noted, but the truth, it is closer now."
As the guests dispersed, Poirot drew Hastings aside, his eyes gleaming.
"The trap, mon ami, has been sprung. Beatrice's confession, Clara's panic, they are cracks in the facade. We are close, very close to the truth.
The manor's shadows deepened as the night closed in, the tension palpable. Poirot's trap had shaken the web, and the killer's mask was slipping, revealing glimpses of the truth that lay beneath. Chapter 10. The Reveal. The evening of the 6th day at Greystone Manor carried an air of inevitability, as if the manor itself knew.
Grayson, though still skeptical of Poirot's methods, stood by the door, his arms crossed, ready to intervene if necessary. Sir Reginald, released temporarily from custody but still under guard, sat with a scowl, while Lady Margaret, Eleanor, Beatrice, Clara, and Dr. Langley occupied their respective places, their faces a mix of apprehension and exhaustion. Captain Hastings, standing near the fireplace, felt his pulse quicken as Poirot stepped into the center of the room, his small, neat figure radiating authority. The detective's eyes gleamed with the quiet confidence of a man who had pieced together the final fragments of a complex puzzle. In his hand he held Julian Warrender's notebook, the pearl earring, and the pocket watch, each item a silent witness to the crime. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice clear and resonant, "we have reached the moment of truth. The murder of Monsieur Julian Warrender was no act of impulse, no crime of passion. It was a calculated act, woven with precision and concealed by a web of lies. Tonight, Hercule Poirot shall unravel that web and reveal the killer among us." A murmur rippled through the room, but Poirot raised a hand, commanding silence. "Let us begin with the facts. Monsieur Warrender was stabbed in the grove at approximately 7 o'clock, with an ornate dagger that suggests intent and familiarity. His notebook and pocket watch were taken, only to be found later. The notebook in the stables, the watch in Sir Reginald's room. A pearl earring was discovered near the grove, and a letter revealed a secret between Monsieur Warrender and Madame Clara Haverford. These clues, they are the threads of our tapestry." He paused, his gaze sweeping the room. "First, let us consider the notebook. Its entries speak of debts, secrets, and a meeting marked by a crescent symbol. One entry reads, "CH demands more, must act before E knows." CH, we assumed, was Madame Clara Haverford, and E, Mademoiselle Eleanor. The letter, found by Mademoiselle Eleanor, confirms a secret between Madame Clara and Monsieur Warrender, a secret she begged him to keep. Clara's face tightened, but she remained silent. Poirot continued, holding up the pearl earring. "This earring, found near the grove, belongs to Madame Clara. She claims it was lost earlier, but its placement suggests she was there at the time of the murder. And Mademoiselle Beatrice's testimony places Madame Clara near the grove, holding something small, perhaps the notebook or the watch." Eleanor's voice trembled as she spoke. "Clara, how could you? Did you kill him?" Clara's eyes flashed. "I did no such thing. I told you. I was at the fortune-teller's tent." "We're at the carousel." Though Beatrice left briefly for lemonade. Sir Reginald was at the shooting gallery, though no one confirms this. Dr. Langley was tending a patient, and Lady Margaret was at the refreshment tent. All seem accounted for, yet one of you lies. He turned to the pocket watch, its crescent symbol glinting in the candlelight. This watch, found in Sir Reginald's room, appears to damn him. His argument with Monsieur Warrender over a debt, overheard by young Tommy Brewer, makes him a convenient suspect. But the watch's placement is too obvious, too careless, for a man of Sir Reginald's cunning. No, It was placed there to mislead us. Sir Reginald's face reddened.
I told you, Poirot. I'm being framed.
Poirot nodded. Indeed, monsieur. But by whom? Let us consider the crescent symbol, found both on the watch and in the notebook. It is a code, a marker of a meeting Monsieur Warrender kept in the grove, where he met his death. Poirot's gaze settled on Dr. Langley, who had remained silent throughout. Doctor, you are a man of precision, of observation. You saw Madame Clara with Monsieur Warrender earlier that evening, near the carousel. But there is more, is there not? You, too, knew Monsieur Warrender's secrets. Langley's calm facade flickered, his eyes narrowing. I don't know what you mean, Monsieur Poirot. Poirot smiled thinly. I think you do. The crescent symbol. It is not merely a code. It is a mark used by a certain society, a discreet group of investors to which Monsieur Warrender belonged. You, Doctor, were part of this group, were you not? And you knew of Monsieur Warrender's plan to expose Sir Reginald's debts, and perhaps your own. The room gasped, and Langley's composure cracked. That's preposterous. I'm a physician, not a financier. Poirot raised the notebook. The entries, they mention T.L., Thomas Langley. You invested with Monsieur Warrender, but when his ventures failed, you faced ruin. You could not allow him to reveal your losses, for it would destroy your reputation in Upper Wychwood. Eleanor's eyes widened. Dr. Langley? But why? Poirot turned to her. Mademoiselle, your fiancé was a man of secrets. He used his charm to gain trust, but also to manipulate. He held leverage over suspicion on her. But the notebook you could not destroy. It was too dangerous to keep. So you hid it in the stables, hoping it would be overlooked. Langley's face paled, but he shook his head. This is speculation, nothing more. Poirot stepped closer, his voice rising. Non, Doctor, it is the truth. You met Monsieur Warrender in the grove at 7, under the pretense of discussing your investments. You stabbed him with the dagger, took his notebook and watch, and left the earring to implicate Madame Clara. But you made one mistake. The crescent symbol, a mark you could not erase. The room was silent, all eyes on Langley. His calm facade shattered, his hands trembling. You can't prove it, he whispered. But his voice lacked conviction. Poirot turned to Grayson. Inspector, search Dr. Langley's study. You will find traces of the dagger's polish, perhaps even the cloth used to clean it. And the crescent symbol, it will match documents in his possession. Grayson, stunned, nodded and signaled to his men. As they escorted Langley from the room, Eleanor sobbed, and Clara's shoulders slumped in relief. Poirot addressed the group one final time, the truth. It is painful, but it is necessary. Monsieur Warrender's secrets brought his end, but justice has been served. As the guests dispersed, Poirot drew Hastings aside. Mon ami, the web is untangled. The little gray cells, they have prevailed. The manor's shadows seemed to lift, the truth laid bare at last. Chapter 11. The Reflection. The morning following Hercule Poirot's dramatic revelation in the drawing room of Greystone Manor brought a quiet that felt almost unnatural after the storm of the previous days. The clouds that had lingered over Upper Wychwood had parted, casting a pale, golden light across the estate's grounds,
where the remnants of the carnival had been fully cleared away. The manor, with its ivy-clad walls and towering chimneys, stood as a silent witness to the tragedy that had unfolded, its grandeur now tinged with a somber air. Inside, the guests moved with a subdued deference, their emotions raw from the unmasking of Dr. Thomas Langley as Julian Warrender's killer. Captain Hastings, seated in the manor's morning room with a cup of tea, stared out at the gardens, his mind still reeling from the events of the previous evening. Dr. Langley had been taken into custody by Inspector Grayson, who, though grudgingly impressed by Poirot's deductions, had muttered about fancy theatrics as he oversaw the arrest. The discovery of a polishing cloth in Langley's study, bearing traces of the same wax used on the ornate dagger, had sealed his fate, and a hidden ledger marked with the crescent symbol confirmed table, its pages filled with the meticulous observations that had led to the truth. The detective's expression was one of quiet satisfaction, though his eyes held a trace of melancholy, as if the resolution of the case brought not triumph, but a deeper understanding of human frailty. "Poirot," Hastings said, breaking the silence. "You were brilliant last night. The way you pieced it all together. The dagger, the earring, the crescent symbol. It was like watching a maestro conduct a symphony. But how did you know it was Langley and not Clara or Reginald?" Poirot set down his cup, his mustache twitching slightly. "Mon ami, it was a matter of order and method. The clues, they pointed to many. Madame Clara with her earring and secret. Sir Reginald with his debts and the planted watch. But Dr. Langley, he was the shadow behind the curtain. His calm, his detachment. It was the mask of a man who had calculated every move. The crescent symbol. It was his undoing, for it linked him to Warrender's secrets in a way no other could claim. Hastings nodded, though a frown creased his brow. But Clara's earring, how did it end up in the grove? And Beatrice's confession, did she really see Clara there? Poirot's eyes gleamed. Madame Clara's earring was a clever touch by Langley. He took it during an earlier encounter, perhaps when they discussed Warrender's demands, and placed it near the grove to cast suspicion on her. As for Mademoiselle Beatrice, her confession was truthful but incomplete. She saw someone in the shadows holding something small, and assumed it was Clara because of her guilt over withholding the truth. Langley exploited this, knowing Beatrice's nervous nature would make her an unreliable witness. Hastings shook his head in admiration. "You saw through it all. But poor Eleanor, she's devastated. To lose Julian and then learn of all these secrets." Poirot's expression softened. "Oui, mon ami. Mademoiselle Eleanor has suffered greatly. Her fiancé was not the man she believed. And the truth, it is a bitter medicine. But it is better to know than to live in a lie. The human heart, it is resilient, even in grief." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Lady Margaret, who entered the room with a quiet dignity. Her face, though pale, bore the strength of a woman's flaws. "Will she recover?" Poirot's voice was gentle. "Time, madame, and truth. They heal, though slowly. Your daughter is strong, and she has you to guide her. As Lady Margaret thanked him and left, Poirot turned to Hastings, his tone reflective. The case of Greystone Manor, it reminds us, Hastings, of the fragility of trust. Monsieur Warrender used his charm to weave a web of secrets, debts, promises, betrayals. Each person here was touched by his influence, and each bore a wound. Yet it was Langley who chose the path of violence, believing it would save him. In the end, it was his own precision that betrayed him. Hastings frowned. Do you ever tire of it, Poirot? Uncovering these dark truths, seeing the worst in people. Poirot's eyes softened, a rare glimpse of vulnerability. Tire, mon ami? No, but there is a weight, yes, to seeing the human heart laid bare. Yet there is also beauty in the pursuit of justice, in restoring order where chaos reigns. It is why Hercule Poirot continues, because the truth, it matters. The two men sat in silence for a moment, the weight of Poirot's words settling over them. Outside, the manor's grounds were coming to life, the gardeners resuming their work, the villagers returning to their routines. The carnival was a memory, its gaiety overshadowed by tragedy, but the estate endured, as did its inhabitants. Poirot rose, adjusting his tie with a precise gesture. Come, Hastings, he said. Our work here is done. The train to London awaits, and I have a craving for a proper café au lait. This tisane, it is adequate, but it lacks finesse. Hastings chuckled, following his friend to the door. You're incorrigible, Poirot, but I wouldn't have you any other way. As they stepped into the hall, Poirot paused, glancing back at the manor. Greystone Manor, it will heal, as will its people. But let us hope, mon ami, that its next carnival is one of joy, not secrets. With that, Hercule Poirot walked out into the morning light, his mind already turning to the next puzzle, his little gray cells ever ready for the challenge of unraveling the mysteries of the human heart. Chapter 12. The Lingering Shadows. The seventh day at Greystone Manor dawned with a deceptive calm. The golden sunlight streaming through the tall windows of the estate, casting long, serene shadows across the polished floors. The arrest of Dr. Thomas Langley had brought a resolution to the murder of Julian Warrender, yet the manor seemed to hold its breath, as if the echoes of the crime still lingered in its halls. The guests, though relieved that the killer had been unmasked, moved with a quiet unease, their interactions marked by the strain of revelations that had exposed the frailties and secrets of those they thought they knew.
Disarray of the household. Captain Hastings, standing by a bookcase, thumbed absently through a volume of poetry, his mind still grappling with the intricacies of Poirot's deductions. The revelation of Dr. Langley's guilt had been a masterstroke, but Hastings could not shake the feeling that some threads of the mystery remained unresolved. Poirot, Hastings said, setting the book down. You've done it again. Solved the case with that uncanny knack of yours. But I can't help wondering, is there more to this? Clara's earring, Beatrice's confession. Did we miss something? Poirot's eyes twinkled as he sipped his tisane. Mon ami, your instincts, they are commendable. Yes, the case is solved, the killer apprehended, but the human heart, it is never so simple. There are shadows still, questions of motive, of complicity, that linger in the background. Today, we shall ensure that no stone is left unturned for the sake of order and clarity. Their conversation was interrupted by the soft creak of the library door. Beatrice Crane entered, her face pale and her hands twisting nervously. She hesitated, then approached Poirot, her voice barely above a whisper. "Monsieur Poirot, I need to speak with you. There's something I didn't tell you last night, something I couldn't say in front of everyone." Poirot's eyebrows rose, and he gestured for her to sit. "Mademoiselle Crane, your candor is most welcome. What is this thing you have withheld?" Beatrice glanced at Hastings, then back at Poirot, her eyes brimming with tears. "It's about Clara. I wasn't entirely honest about what I saw in the grove. I did see her there, holding something, but it wasn't a book or a watch. It was a letter like the one Eleanor found. I think she was reading it, and she looked so frightened, as if she knew something terrible was about to happen." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "A letter, you say? And you are certain it was Madame Clara?" Beatrice nodded, her voice trembling. "I didn't want to say before because I was afraid for her. Clara's always been kind to me, despite her sharp tongue. But after what you revealed about Dr. Langley, I thought, maybe it's important." Poirot leaned forward, his tone gentle but probing. "And this letter, did you see its contents or hear anything Madame Clara said?" Beatrice shook her head. "No, Dr. Langley's game. The letter she held, it may be another piece of the web, one that explains her fear and her silence. We must speak with her." They found Clara Haverford in the conservatory, tending to a tray of seedlings with a care that seemed almost desperate. Her face, usually so composed, was drawn, and her hands trembled slightly as she worked. She looked up as Poirot and Hastings entered, her eyes narrowing. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice tight, "have you come to accuse me again? I thought your little performance last night settled matters." Poirot inclined his head. "Madame, I come not to accuse, but to clarify. Mademoiselle Beatrice has shared a detail that you were seen in the grove, holding a letter, moments before the murder. Can you explain this?" Clara's hands froze, and for a moment her composure faltered. "Beatrice is mistaken," she said, her voice sharp. "I was at the fortune-teller's tent, as I've said a dozen times." Poirot's gaze was unwavering. "And yet, Mademoiselle's testimony is specific. A letter, Madame, one that caused you fear. Was it, perhaps, another communication from Monsieur Warrender, like the one Mademoiselle Eleanor found?" Clara's eyes flashed with anger, but her voice trembled. "You're relentless, aren't you? Fine. Yes, I received a letter from Julian that day. It was personal. He wrote that he could no longer keep my secret about my feelings for him. I loved him, Monsieur Poirot, and he knew it. But he loved Eleanor, and he said he had to tell her the truth. I went to the grove to beg him not to, but he was already gone." Hastings' eyes widened. "You loved him? But you're married to Sir Reginald." Clara's laugh was bitter. "A marriage of convenience, Captain. Reginald's debts tied us together. But my heart was with Julian. I didn't kill him. I couldn't. When I found him dead, I panicked and dropped the letter. I didn't know what to do." Poirot nodded, his expression softening. "And the earring, Madame? It was yours, found near the grove." Clara's shoulders slumped. "I must have lost it when I was there. I didn't realize until later. I swear, I had no part in his death." Poirot made another note, his pencil moving swiftly.
Merci, madame. Your confession, it clears a shadow. But tell me, did you see Dr. Langley that evening, near the grove?
Clara hesitated, then nodded.
I saw him walking toward the grove just before I arrived. He looked purposeful. I thought
Langley's movements. He was there setting his trap. Hastings frowned.
So, Clara's innocent, but she was entangled in the whole mess?
Oui, Poirot replied.
her silence was born of shame, not guilt. But it is the human heart, Hastings, that complicates the truth. Love, jealousy, fear, they weave a tapestry as intricate as any crime.
As the day wore on, Poirot and Hastings prepared to depart Greystone Manor, their work nearly complete. The lingering shadows of the case, Clara's unrequited love, Beatrice's hidden observation, had been brought to light, ensuring no loose ends remained. The manor, though scarred by tragedy, seemed to breathe easier, its secrets laid bare by the relentless logic of Hercule Poirot. Chapter 13. The Final Threads. The 8th day at Greystone Manor unfolded with a quiet that seemed almost reverent, as if the estate itself acknowledged the resolution of the dark mystery that had gripped it. The morning sun bathed the grounds in a soft, forgiving light, illuminating the manicured lawns and the now empty spaces where the carnival tents had stood. Inside the manor, the guests moved with a cautious relief, their conversations hushed, as though speaking too loudly might stir the ghosts of the past week's events. Dr. Thomas Langley's arrest had brought justice, but the revelations of secrets, Clara's unrequited love, Sir Reginald's debts, and Julian Warrender's manipulations had left scars that would not soon heal. Hercule Poirot, seated in the manor's morning room with a steaming cup of tisane, appeared as composed as ever, his polished shoes gleaming and his mustache impeccably groomed. Captain Hastings, standing by the window, watched a pair of gardeners at work, his mind still turning over the intricacies of the case. Clara's confession the previous day had clarified her role, but Hastings could not shake the sense that some final piece of the puzzle remained elusive. "Poirot," Hastings said, turning to his friend, "you've tied up the case brilliantly, as always. Langley's the killer, Clara's cleared, and the clues all fit. But something's nagging at me. That crescent symbol in the notebook and on the watch. Why was it so important to Langley? And what about Beatrice? She held back for so long. Could she know more?" Poirot's eyes twinkled as he set down his cup. "Mon ami, your curiosity is a credit to you. Yes, the crescent symbol, it is a key that unlocks more than just Langley's guilt. It is a marker of a deeper secret, one that ties this crime to the broader tapestry of human ambition. As for Mademoiselle Beatrice, her silence was born of loyalty and fear, but I believe she has one final truth to share. Today, we shall weave the last threads of this mystery." Their opportunity—
"Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice soft but determined. "I couldn't sleep last night. There's something else I need to tell you, something I found after the gathering in the drawing room." Poirot's eyebrows rose, and he gestured for her to sit. "Mademoiselle, your courage continues to impress. What is this thing you have found?" Beatrice unfolded the paper, revealing a torn page from a notebook, its edges ragged but its writing unmistakable. It bore the same crescent symbol as Warrender's notebook, along with a single line, "TL to settle accounts at Carnival, no delays." She handed it to Poirot, her eyes brimming with tears. "I found it in the conservatory, tucked behind a pot. I think it fell from Dr. Langley's coat when he was there earlier in the week." Poirot examined the page, his expression one of quiet triumph. "This, Mademoiselle, is most significant. It confirms that Dr. Langley planned his meeting with Monsieur Warrender well in advance." The crescent symbol. It was not merely a code, but a signal within their investment society. A mark of finality, of debts that must be paid. Hastings leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. You mean Langley planned the murder days before the carnival? Oui, mon ami, Poirot replied, his voice grave. The symbol. It was a private marker, used by the society to denote urgent transactions. Langley, facing ruin, saw the carnival as his opportunity to silence Warrender before his losses were exposed. This page, it is the final proof of his intent. Beatrice's voice trembled as she spoke. I should have said something sooner, but I was afraid. Dr. Langley was always so kind to me, and I couldn't believe he'd do such a thing. But after what you said in the drawing room, I knew I had to come forward. Poirot's gaze softened. Your honesty, mademoiselle, has closed the circle. You have done well. As Beatrice left, Poirot turned to Hastings, holding up the torn page. This, mon ami, is the last thread. The crescent symbol was Langley's signature, a mark of his desperation. But there is one more matter to address, the role of the manor's silent observer, Mr. Collins, the butler. Hastings frowned. The butler, he's barely said a word this whole time. Precisely, Poirot said, his eyes gleaming. His silence is a clue in itself. Let us speak with him. They found Mr. Collins in the pantry, polishing silver with a methodical precision that rivaled Poirot's own. The butler looked up as they entered, his expression impassive but attentive. Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, he said, how may I assist you? Poirot's tone was polite but probing. Monsieur Collins, you have been a silver.
I am trained to be discreet, Monsieur Poirot, but since you ask, I saw Dr. Langley near the grove just before 7 o'clock. He was carrying a small case, like one used for medical instruments. I thought it odd, as he had no patient there. Poirot's eyes narrowed. A case, you say? And did you see him return? Collins nodded. He returned to the manor shortly after the scream, looking unsettled. I did not think it my place to mention it to the inspector. Poirot inclined his head. Merci, Monsieur Collins. Your observation is most valuable. As they left the pantry, Poirot murmured to Hastings, The case, mon ami. It contained the dagger, no doubt. Langley prepared his act with care, but he could not foresee the vigilance of a butler or the honesty of Mademoiselle Beatrice. Hastings shook his head in admiration. You've thought of everything, Poirot. The case is airtight now. Poirot smiled thinly. Airtight, perhaps, but the human heart, it leaves traces that cannot be erased. Langley's ambition, Clara's love, Beatrice's fear, they are the threads that wove this tragedy, and now they are laid bare. As the day drew to a close, Poirot and Hastings prepared to leave Greystone Manor, their suitcases packed and their train to London booked. The manor's inhabitants, though shaken, were beginning to find their footing, their secrets exposed and their wounds laid open to heal. Eleanor, supported by Lady Margaret, had begun to speak of the future, while Clara, chastened by her confession, sought to mend her strained marriage to Sir Reginald. Beatrice, freed from her burden of silence, seemed lighter, and even Mr. Collins allowed a rare smile as he bid them farewell. Poirot paused at the manor's entrance, his gaze lingering on the ivy-clad walls. Greystone Manor, it will endure, mon ami, he said to Hastings. But let us hope its next chapter is one of peace, not shadows.
With that, the little Belgian detective stepped into the waiting car, his mind already turning to new challenges, his little gray cells ever ready to confront the mysteries that awaited. Chapter 14. The Echoes of Truth. The 9th day at Greystone Manor brought a stillness that seemed to settle over the estate like a soft blanket, the golden light of late summer filtering through the tall windows and casting intricate patterns on the polished floors. The resolution of Julian Warrender's murder had lifted the oppressive weight that had hung over the household, yet the echoes of the tragedy lingered, whispering.
Tizan surveyed the scene with his characteristic precision. His small, neat figure, clad in an immaculate suit, exuded an air of calm authority, his mustache perfectly groomed, despite the emotional turbulence of the past week. Captain Hastings, standing near a bookcase filled with leather-bound volumes, felt a mix of relief and curiosity. The case was solved, the killer apprehended. Yet, Poirot's insistence on remaining at the manor for one more day suggested there were still threads to be tied. "Poirot," Hastings said, turning from the bookcase, "you've wrapped up the case with your usual brilliance. But why are we still here? Langley's in custody. The clues are explained, and the manor's starting to breathe again. Is there something you haven't told me?" Poirot's eyes twinkled as he sipped his tisane. "Mon ami, you are perceptive, as always. The case, it is solved, oui, but there is a final act to be played, a moment of clarity for those left behind. The truth, it is not only for justice, but for healing. There is one more conversation to be had, one more shadow to dispel before Hercule Poirot takes his leave." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Eleanor Haverford, who entered the drawing room with a hesitant step. Her auburn curls were neatly pinned, but her eyes, though clearer than they had been, still carried the weight of grief. She approached Poirot, her hands clasped tightly before her. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice soft but steady, "I wanted to thank you. You've brought justice for Julian, but I still feel lost. I keep wondering, could I have seen something, done something, to prevent this?" Poirot rose, his expression one of gentle compassion. "Mademoiselle, the heart, it blinds us to truths we are not ready to see. Monsieur Warrender, he was a man of charm but also of secrets. You loved him, and that love was true, even if he was not. You must not blame yourself for the actions of others." Eleanor's lips trembled, but she nodded. "I found something this morning in my jewelry box. I thought you should see it." She produced a small, folded note, its edges worn but intact, and handed it to Poirot. "It's from Julian, written the day before the carnival. I didn't find it until now." Poirot unfolded the note, his eyes scanning the familiar script. It read, "My dearest Eleanor, tomorrow, I must face a truth that may hurt you. I've kept secrets, not out of malice, but to protect you. If all goes well, we shall start anew free of shadows. Forgive me. Yours always, Julian." Poirot's mustache twitched as he folded the note. "This, mademoiselle, is a testament." Poirot placed a hand on hers, his voice gentle. "Oui, mademoiselle. His death was a tragedy, but it was not your doing. You must carry forward with the strength of your heart." As Eleanor thanked him and left, Poirot turned to Hastings. "This note, mon ami, it confirms what I suspected. Warrender was prepared to reveal all, to break the web of secrets. It was this threat that drove Langley to act, fearing exposure of his own ruin." Hastings frowned. "But what about the others? Clara, Reginald, will they be all right?" Poirot's gaze softened. They will heal in time. Madame Clara must face her husband and her own heart. Sir Reginald, he must confront his debts and his pride. But the manor, it is strong, and so are its people. Their final task came in the form of a brief meeting with Lady Margaret, who sought them out in the library. Her silver hair was impeccably arranged, but her eyes held a quiet gratitude. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, "you have restored order to Greystone Manor, at great cost to us all. I misjudged Julian, and I failed to see Dr. Langley's true nature. How can I thank you?" Poirot inclined his head. "Madame, your thanks are in the peace that will return to this house. The truth, it is a sharp blade, but it cuts away the lies that bind us. Care for your daughter, and guide your family through this shadow." Lady Margaret nodded, her voice steady. "I will, and I hope we may one day host a carnival free of such darkness." Poirot smiled. "I have no doubt, madame. Greystone Manor is a place of resilience." As they prepared to depart, Poirot and Hastings took a final walk through the manor's grounds, the air crisp with the promise of autumn. The oak tree in the grove, once the site of tragedy, stood silent, its branches swaying gently in the breeze. Poirot paused, his eyes tracing the spot where Warrender's body had lain. "Hastings," he said, his voice reflective. "Each case, it is a mirror of the human soul. Here we saw love, greed, fear, and betrayal, all woven into a single act of violence. Yet we also saw courage, Beatrice's honesty, Eleanor's strength, Clara's confession. It is this balance that keeps us searching for the truth." Hastings nodded, a smile tugging at his lips. "You've a way of seeing the world, Poirot. I don't know how you do it." Poirot's mustache twitched. "With order, method, and the little gray cells, mon ami. Now, come. The train to London awaits, and I have a longing for a proper café au lait." Radiant glow over the estate's sprawling grounds. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of dew-kissed grass and the promise of autumn just beyond the horizon. The manor, with its ivy-clad walls and towering chimneys, stood as a silent sentinel, its grandeur restored by the resolution of the dark mystery that had unfolded within its confines. The arrest of Dr. Thomas Langley had brought justice for Julian Warrender's murder, and the revelations of secrets, Clara's unrequited love, Sir Reginald's debts, Beatrice's hidden truths, had begun to mend, though the scars would linger in the hearts of those who remained. Hercule Poirot, standing in the manor's entrance hall with his suitcase neatly packed, adjusted his tie with a precise gesture, his polished shoes gleaming in the morning light. His mustache, as always, was impeccably groomed, a testament to his unwavering commitment to order and method. Captain Hastings, beside him, carried his own suitcase, his expression a mix of relief and melancholy as he prepared to leave the scene of their latest triumph. "Poirot," Hastings said, glancing around the hall. "It's hard to believe we've only been here a week. It feels like a lifetime, with all that's happened. You've done it again, unraveled a puzzle that seemed impossible." Poirot's eyes twinkled as he surveyed the hall, its polished oak and ancestral portraits now bathed in sunlight. "Mon ami, the puzzle. It is never impossible when one employs the little gray cells. The case of Greystone Manor was a tapestry of human passions, love, greed, fear, and loyalty. Each thread, it led us to the truth, though the path was not without its shadows." Their conversation was interrupted by the soft tread of Lady Margaret Haverford, who descended the grand staircase with a grace that belied the strain of the past days. Her silver hair was impeccably arranged, and her eyes, though tired, held a quiet gratitude. "Monsieur Poirot,"
Captain Hastings, she said, her voice warm but tinged with emotion. I cannot let you leave without expressing my deepest thanks. You have brought light to our darkness, and though the cost was great, Greystone Manor is whole again. Poirot inclined his head, his expression one of quiet dignity. Madame, it is the duty of Hercule Poirot to restore order where chaos reigns. Your family, it has suffered, but it is strong. You will guide it forward, I have no doubt. Lady Margaret's lips curved into a faint smile. I shall try, Monsieur Poirot. Eleanor is beginning to find her strength, and even Clara and Reginald are speaking again, though it will take time. Your presence here has been a gift. Before Poirot could respond, Eleanor appeared at the top of the staircase, her auburn curls catching the light. She descended slowly, her face pale but resolute. Monsieur Poirot,
Death. It broke my heart, but knowing the truth, painful as it is, has given me a path to heal. I found his note, and it reminded me that he loved me, even if he was flawed. Poirot's gaze softened. Mademoiselle, the heart, it is a fragile thing, but it is also resilient. You loved a man who was not perfect, but his love for you was true in its way. Carry that with you, and let the rest fade. Eliana nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. I will. Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. As Eleanor stepped back, Beatrice Crane approached, her nervous energy subdued but still evident. She clutched a small handkerchief, her eyes bright with gratitude. Monsieur Poirot, I was so afraid to speak up, but you made it possible. I feel free for the first time in days. Poirot smiled gently. Mademoiselle Crane, your courage was a spark that lit the way to the truth. Never doubt the value of your honesty. Finally, Clara Haverford appeared, her posture rigid but her expression softer than it had been. Monsieur Poirot, she said, her voice low. I misjudged you. I thought your questions were cruel, but they were necessary. I'm trying to make things right with Reginald, and with myself. Poirot's eyes gleamed with understanding. Madame, the truth, it is a mirror that reflects our flaws, but also our capacity to change. You have taken the first step, and that is enough. As the guests bid their farewells, Mr. Collins, the butler, approached with a rare smile. Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, the car is ready to take you to the station. It has been an honor to witness your work. Poirot bowed slightly. Monsieur Collins, your discretion and observation were of great value. A butler, he sees much, and you saw what mattered. With their farewells complete, Poirot and Hastings stepped out into the crisp morning air, the gravel drive crunching under their feet as they approached the waiting car. The manor loomed behind them, its windows glinting in the sunlight, a symbol of endurance despite the tragedy it had witnessed. As they settled into the car, Hastings glanced at Poirot, a grin tugging at his lips. You know, Poirot, he said, I think you enjoyed this case, shadows and all. There's nothing like a good mystery to get your blood pumping. Poirot's mustache twitched, a rare chuckle escaping him. Mon ami, the mystery, it is the lifeblood of Hercule Poirot. But I confess, I look forward to a quiet evening in London with a proper café au lait and perhaps a touch of Mozart to soothe the soul. Hastings laughed. You and your coffee. I'll stick to a pint and a fire myself. As the car pulled away, Poirot gazed out at the receding map, stirring to life under the morning sun. Poirot's mind, ever active, turned briefly to the case, its clues and revelations now a completed chapter in his storied career. But as the train station came into view, he allowed himself a moment of contentment, knowing that justice had been served and order restored. The mystery of Greystone Manor was closed, but the world, with its endless puzzles,
awaited the little Belgian detective and his loyal friend.
In the shadowed halls of Ashwood Hall, a single act of violence shatters the elegance of a literary shadow stretched long across the polished floors of Ashwood Hall. A silver letter opener, their edges softened by the flickering light of the chandeliers in the grand dining scandal. The guests of the literary society, though gathered for dinner, or the prelude to a darker strained silence. Enter Hercule Poirot, dulled by the brilliant Belgian detective whose little gray cells unravel a web of lies, plagiarism, and hidden Clara Henshaw's cherished tabby. Who among the refined guests cast a pall over the estate's explosive secret, and Hercule Poirot's relentless silent guilt tightened the noose of tension around the group, the key to this chilling Clara's emotional confession earlier that step into a world of suspense, scandalous where every clue counts. And the study is more shocking had sent ripples of unease through the assembly. Will you unravel the secrets before the clink of silverware echoed in the vast room? All eyes the quiet to before the storm. The late summer sun head of the table, his presence over the manicured lawns of Ashwood Hall stature. A grand Georgian estate nestled in the heart of seated near the end of the table. Watched its ivy-clad mix of anticipation and unease. Spoke of centuries of detective's cream linen suit was as immaculate as ever. Facade, his mustache a perfect arc of precision, but his dark eyes gleamed with a quiet intensity that suggested he was about to spring a society. A prestigious assembly of the blood-stained manuscript patrons who convened each August to discuss literature, exchange ideas and strategy. Inevitably, and Hastings knew that Poirot was preparing to apply the psychological this year, however, that the gathering carried an edge for the society's patrons. Madame Reginald Ashwood had promised a revelation that would shake the literary night. We dine together, but we are not Captain Arthur Hastings. The death of Poirot's cat is a wound that festers, and the secrets you carry they weigh heaven. Observing the eclectic group Hercule Poirot have observed, I have questioned. The guests now I will lay a trap, not for a mouse, but for a murderer. Moved with the practice, I ask you to listen carefully. Accustomed to scrutiny, for one among you knows more Hastings than they have ever said. The romantic found himself charmed by the scene, their forks pausing the clink of china, the soft Lady Beatrice the rustle of silk seated dresses at the opposite end of the table. Yet as he adjusted his straw hat, he could not shake a faint sense of disquiet. Mr. Poirot, this melodrama is tiresome. Something about the gathering. You've accused us all in turn, yet you offer no proof. Like a melody played in a minor key. If you have something to say it plainly. Came a familiar Poirot's smile was serene but edged with steel. You are lost in thought, I plainly, madame. And what does the good Captain Hastings ponder on this fine afternoon? It was a warning. Hastings turned to find Hercule Poirot at his side. Immaculate in a cream linen suit, expose a his mustache waxed to perfection, a secret that could ruin reputations. The little Belgian detective's dark eyes gleamed one of curiosity, as if he could already sense the undercurrents Hastings had only vaguely perceived. A gasp filled the room. Oh, just admiring the view, Poirot. Her eyes wide with fear, gesturing toward the lawn. I told you, Mr. Poirot, quite a crowd, isn't it? I wouldn't tell anyone. Writers, critics, publishers, all gathered under one roof. Me. Makes one wonder his gaze secrets they're hiding behind those polite smiles, mademoiselle. And now let us examine the facts. The library window was open between 9 o'clock and 3:15. There are secrets. The letter human heart is a labyrinth of fingerprints, place such as this where ambition and pride mingle. One must expect the manuscript page stained with blood was left near the body. The two men had been invited to Ashwood Hall at the behest of Sir Reginald himself, in the library, a man known for his wealth, his patronage of the arts, but there is penchant for the dramatic. A scratch on the bookshelf. Poirot, ever intrigued by puzzles, had accepted the invitation with a gleam in his eye. Stage scene, though he had confided to Hastings that he suspected Sir Reginald's revelation might involve more than mere literary gossip. Julian Tarrant, his cigarette unlit for his part, was simply glad to escape the bustle of London for a weekend. You're saying someone planned this, though he down to the last to expect a quiet holiday. Poirot's eyes was involved. Oui, Monsieur
The lawn
Tarrant
was a kaleidoscope
and
of
you with your
personalities.
hour unaccounted for
There was
yesterday
Lady
between
Beatrice
1:45 and 3
Sir
o'clock.
Reginald's
You are
wife,
of particular
a
interest.
statuesque woman in
You
her
claim
late
you were
40s,
smoking
sharp
on the
wit
terrace,
and sharper
yet no
tongue
one
made her
saw
both
you
admire
return to
and
the
fear.
billiard room until nearly
She
3.
stood near the rose garden,
Where were you?
conversing with Dr.
Evelyn
Terence
Carver,
Carver,
a psychologist and author whose recent book on
I
the criminal
told you I
mind
was
had
walking
caused
the
a
grounds,
stir.
clearing my head.
Nearby,
I didn't go
Mr.
near the
Julian
library,
Tarrant,
and
a
I
dashing
certainly
young
didn't
novelist
kill
with
that
a
cat.
reputation for charm
Poirot
and
turned to Leonard
scandal
Bryce,
was
whose
holding
pen had
court with a
stilled his
group
face
of
pale.
admirers, his
And
laughter
you,
carrying
Monsieur
across
Bryce,
the
you
lawn.
were in a heated
Miss Clara
discussion with
Henshaw,
Mademoiselle
a reclusive
Henshaw,
poetess
2 days
known
ago
for
near
her
the
cryptic
library.
verses, sat alone
She says it
under
was
a
about
parasol,
royalties,
her
but
eyes
the maid
fixed on some
described it as
distant point.
passionate.
And then there was Mr. Leonard
Was
Bryce,
it perhaps
Sir
about the
Reginald's
manuscript?
solicitor. Did you know
A
of
dour
its
man
contents?
whose presence seemed to cast a
Bryce's
shadow
eyes
over the
darted to
otherwise
Sir Reginald,
festive
then
scene.
back to Poirot. An interesting
told you
cast,
it was a
wouldn't you say,
business
Poirot?
matter.
I know
Hastings
nothing
remarked,
about any
nodding toward the
manuscript,
group.
and I was in the billiard
I
room
wonder what
until
Sir
3,
Reginald's
as
big
Tarrant
announcement
said. is. A new
Poirot's
manuscript
gaze
shifted
perhaps,
to Doctor, or some scandalous
Evelyn
discovery
Carver,
about
whose
one
calm
of these
demeanor
literary
seemed to
types.
falter for the first
Poirot
time.
tilted his head, his fingers
Madame
brushing
Carver,
the edge of his mustache.
you
saw a shadow near the
Perhaps
library
Hastings,
window at 2:15,
but I
yet
suspect
you
it
did
is
not
something
mention it
more
until pressed.
personal.
And you were in the library
Sir
at
Reginald
2
is not a
o'clock
man to
reading.
make grand promises
Did
lightly.
you see the manuscript
And
page
where there are
perhaps,
promises,
or did you
there
leave
are
it there?
expectations.
Dr.
And where
Carver's
there
lips
are
tightened, but her voice
expectations, there is
remained
often
steady.
betrayal.
I saw no manuscript,
Before Hastings
Mr.
could
Poirot.
press for details, a gong
I was reading a
sounded
book from
Sir
the house,
Reginald's collection,
summoning the guests to the
As for the
drawing
shadow
room
I
for Sir
told you, it
Reginald's
was
address.
fleeting,
Nothing more. The crowd began
Poirot
to drift
nodded, then
indoors,
turned to Sir Reginald,
their
whose
chatter
knuckles
growing
were
hushed
white
with
against the mantel.
anticipation. Sir Reginald,
Poirot
your
and Hastings
manuscript
followed
is
the
the heart of this
detective's eyes,
mystery. Scanning the faces
You say
around
it is
him,
locked in your
as if
study,
already
yet
Clara saw
cataloguing
it
their
2 days ago, and
expressions
a
for
page
future
was found in
reference.
the library.
The
I
drawing
ask you
room
now,
was a
who
masterpiece
else
of
knew of its
opulence,
contents?
with polished oak paneling,
And why did
a
you leave
crystal
your study
chandelier,
at 2 o'clock
and
yesterday when
shelves
you
lined
claimed to
with
have been
leather-bound
preparing your
volumes?
speech? Sir
Reginald's
Reginald
face
stood at the
darkened,
far
his
end,
voice
a
low.
tall, imposing figure
I've had
with
enough
silver
of this,
hair and a
Poirot.
commanding presence.
My manuscript
His
is
eyes,
my affair,
sharp
and I
and
was in the
calculating,
gardens, as I
swept
said.
over the room as the
I
guests
won't be
settled into
interrogated
their
like a
seats.
common criminal.
Lady Beatrice's
Poirot's
smile
smile
was
was right.
enigmatic, her expression
Not a
unreadable,
criminal,
while
Sir
Leonard
Reginald,
Bryce
but
hovered
a man
nearby,
with
clutching a
secrets.
leather portfolio.
And secrets,
they are dangerous. Ladies and gentlemen, let us now
Sir
consider
Reginald
the earring.
began,
His voice rich and resonant.
He held it up, its
I
pearl
welcome
glinting
you
in the
to
candlelight.
Ashwood Hall, and
Lady
to this
Beatrice,
year's
you touched
gathering
your
of
ear
our
when I showed
esteemed
it.
literary
I have
society.
learned from the
maid that you lost
For years,
a pearl
we
earring
have
2 days
celebrated the
ago,
power
yet
of
you've
the
denied
written
it was
word.
yours. But tonight,
Why?
I stand before you
Lady
to
Beatrice's
reveal a discovery
composure
that will
cracked, her voice
redefine
trembling
our
with anger.
understanding of literature. You accuse me,
And
Mr.
of
Poirot,
truth itself.
that earring could belong to
A murmur
anyone.
rippled through the room.
I lost
Hastings
one, yes,
leaned
but
toward
it was
Poirot,
days ago in
whispering,
the garden. Sounds like
I
he's
have nothing
about
to
to
do
drop
with
a
this madness.
bombshell.
Poirot's
Poirot's
narrowed.
eyes narrowed, his
A
voice
bombshell,
soft
yes.
but piercing.
But of what kind? mon ami?
Nothing, madame. That is the question. Yet the earring
Sir
was
Reginald
found in the
continued,
library,
his
his
tone
tone
growing
growing
more
more intense, and the scratch on the
For
bookshelf
months,
suggests the cat
I have
was
been in
moved,
possession of
perhaps
a
by someone who
manuscript,
dropped this
a work
earring
of
in
such
their
brilliance,
Such
the room was
audacity
electric
that it
with
will
tension.
challenge
Every
everything we
guest
know about
frozen
one
in
of
their
our
seat.
greatest literary figures.
Hastings,
his heart pounding,
This
knew
manuscript
Poirot was
hidden for
closing
decades
in,
revealed
pushing
secrets
each
that
that
some
some
would
would
kill
kill
to
to protect. The detective
tonight,
stepped forward, his voice
intend
rising.
to
share its contents with
I
you all.
propose
a theory.
The room erupted
The
in
killer
gasps
entered the
and
library
whispers.
through the open window.
Julian Tarrant's
Killed
face
Pippin
paled
to send a
while Clara
warning and
Henshaw's
staged
hands
the scene
tightened
with the
on her
manuscript
parasol.
page to divert suspicion.
Dr. Carver's eyes
But they
gleamed
made
with
with
interest,
interest, and Lady
The earring,
Beatrice's
the
lips
scratch,
pressed into a
the clean
thin letter
line.
opener.
And
Leonard
now
Bryce
they are
shifted
afraid,
uncomfortably,
for they
his
know I am
fingers
close.
twitching on his portfolio.
Clara let
out
out
a sob, and Terence stood
But
before
voice
Sir
shaking.
Reginald could elaborate. This is
A
intolerable,
piercing
scream cut through the air.
You're accusing us all,
guests
playing
turned as
games
one
with
to
our
see a
nerves.
maid, pale
If
and
you know who
trembling,
did it,
standing in the
name them.
doorway. Poirot's
Sir,
gaze
sir.
was unyielding. She stammered, her voice
Patience,
breaking.
Monsieur Tarrant.
It's Miss Henshaw's
The
cat.
trap.
Pippin
It
is
is
set.
set, and
He's
the truth
dead.
In
will
the
spring it.
library, sir, for now
With
I ask
blood
you all to
everywhere.
remain in the house tonight. Chaos
The police
erupted.
guard the grounds,
Clara
and I,
Henshaw, let out a
Hercule
wail,
Poirot,
clutching
guard
her
the truth.
chest, while the others
As the
surged
guests
toward the
rose,
library,
their
their voices a
drawn.
cacophony of
Hastings
shock
followed
and
Poirot to the
speculation.
hall.
Poirot, however,
rattled,
remained
Poirot,
seated,
he
his
whispered.
eyes fixed on the
That
scene with a
earring,
calm
the manuscript.
intensity that
Do you
unnerved
think Lady
Hastings.
Beatrice is involved?
Poirot, aren't
Poirot's
you coming?
eyes twinkled.
Hastings asked, already
Involved,
halfway to his
Hastings?
feet.
Perhaps, but the trap,
The
it is not
detective
for one
raised a
person
hand.
alone. It is for the
Patience,
truth,
Hastings.
and tonight I believe
cat,
it will be
it is
caught.
dead.
Yes? The night
But
deepened
it is
in
not the
Ashwood
cat
Hall
that
seemed
interests
to hold
me.
its
It
breath,
is the blood,
waiting for the
and the
trap to
reason for
spring.
it.
Come,
Chapter
let
10.
us observe, but let us do so
The
with
reveal.
method. The grand
joining
dining
the
room
throng
of
in the
Ashwood
library,
Hall was
a
ablaze
room
with
of
dark
candlelight,
wood and
the
towering
flickering
flames
bookshelves.
casting long shadows across
On
the
the
polished
Persian
mahogany
rug lay
table.
Pippin,
Clara Henshaw's
guests of
beloved
the literary
tabby,
society,
his fur
summoned
matted by
with blood.
Hercule Poirot,
A silver
for
letter
what he had
opener
promised would be
protruding
a
from his
decisive
side.
gathering, sat in a
Clara
tense
knelt
semicircle,
beside him, sobbing,
their faces
while the others
pale
hovered,
and drawn.
their
faces a mix of horror
The death
and
of
curiosity.
Pippin.
Clara Henshaw's beloved
Dieu.
tabby had unraveled the
murmured,
delicate
stepping
threads
forward.
of civility that
His
bound
eyes
the
swept
group,
the room, taking
and
in the open
Poirot's
window, the
relentless
scattered
probing
papers
had
on the
exposed
desk,
lies,
the faint
secrets
smear of
and blood on
motives.
the edge of a
Now,
bookshelf.
as
the clock struck 9,
This is
the
no
air
accident,
was thick
Hastings.
with
This is a
anticipation.
message.
Each guest
A
aware
message,
that the little
Hastings
Belgian
echoed,
detective
bewildered.
was
But
about
it's
to
just a
lay
cat,
bare the
Poirot.
truth. Poirot's gaze was
Captain
stealing.
Arthur
Just
Hastings,
a cat seated near the end
Non,
of
mon
the
ami,
table.
in
In
the
the
hands
hands
of
of
a
a
murderer,
murderer,
even
even
a
a
cat
cat
can be a
Poirot
clue.
take his place at the head.
And
I,
The
Hercule
detective's
Poirot, will
cream
find the
linen
truth
suit
behind
was
this
immaculate.
feline
His
fatality. His
mustache
mustache, perfect
as the
dark.
guests
whispered and the shadows
dark
dark
eyes
eyes burned with a quiet
Hastings
intensity
felt a
that signaled
chill
the climax
settle
of
over
the
him.
mystery. The
In
quiet
his
elegance
hands,
of
he held
Ashwood
the
Hall
blood-stained
had been
manuscript
shattered,
page,
and
the
he
pearl
knew with a
earring,
sinking
and
certainty
the
that
small
this was
notebook
only
filled
the
with
beginning.
his
meticulous observations.
Chapter
2. The room
The
was
crime.
silent, save for the faint
The library
crackle
at
of the
Ashwood
fire
Hall,
and the distant
bathed in
howl
the
of the
fading
evening
light of the
wind.
late
afternoon, had
Mesdames et
transformed
messieurs,
from a sanctuary
Poirot began
of
his
learning
voice
into
clear
a
and commanding.
stage for tragedy. We have gathered tonight
The
to
air was
unravel
thick
the
with the
mystery
scent
of
of
the
old
death of
books and the
Pippin,
metallic
the
tang
cat
of
of
blood.
Mademoiselle Henshaw, a grim reminder
But
of the
this is no
violence
mere
that had
animal
shattered
cruelty.
the
It is a
estate's
crime that
polished
points to a
veneer.
deeper truth.
Pippin,
A truth
the
that
unfortunate
threatens
tabby
reputations,
belonging to Miss
fortunes,
Clara
and lives.
Henshaw, lay lifeless
I,
on the
Hercule
Persian
Poirot,
rug, have used
the
my
silver
little gray
letter
cells
opener
to
piece
glint
together the
cruelly in
puzzle.
his side. And now,
Around the body,
I will
the
guests
guests
of the
murderer
Ashwood Literary
and their
Society
motives.
stood in a loose
A collective
semicircle.
gasp rippled
Their
through the
faces
room.
a gallery of shock.
Lady Beatrice Ashwood
Suspicion
gripped the arms
and
of her
poorly
chair,
concealed
her
unease,
face a mask of controlled
Hercule
fury.
Poirot, his small frame
Sir
a
Reginald
beacon
stood
of calm
rigid by the
amidst
fireplace,
chaos,
his eyes fixed on
surveyed
Poirot.
the scene with the precision of
Julian
a
Tarrant,
watchmaker.
his cigarette
His
unlit,
dark
leaned
eyes
forward,
missing
his charm
nothing.
replaced
by nervous agitation.
Captain
Hastings, standing
Dr.
just
Evelyn
behind
Carver
Poirot,
maintained
felt
her
his
clinical
stomach
calm,
churn at the
though
sight
her
of
fingers
the poor
twitched
creature.
slightly.
The brutality of the
Clara
act
Henshaw,
seemed
pale and
incongruous with the
trembling, clutched a
refined
handkerchief.
setting. And Leonard
Yet
Bryce,
there was
the
something
solicitor,
deliberate
sat
with his
almost
portfolio
theatrical
closed,
about
his
the
face
placement
ashen.
of the letter opener. Poirot held up the manuscript
Ghastly
page,
business,
its
Poirot,
delicate
he
script,
muttered,
stained
adjusting
with
his
blood,
tie
as if to ward off the chill
This
creeping up
page
his
found
spine.
in
the library is the key to our
do
mystery.
such
a thing to a harmless
Mademoiselle
cat. Henshaw glimpsed a manuscript
Poirot
in
did
Sir
not answer
Reginald's
immediately.
study, one that exposed
Instead,
a
he knelt
plagiarism
beside the
scandal.
body,
his gloved fingers
famous
hovering
work
just
stolen
above the
from
letter
an opener
unknown
without
writer.
touching
it. This page,
Harmless,
it is
you
part
say,
of that
Hastings?
manuscript, and it was left near
Perhaps.
the cat's body
But
to
this
send
cat,
a
he
message.
was not
chosen at random, but whose message? Non,
And
this
to
is a
whom?
crime of intention,
He paused,
a crime
his
that
gaze
speaks
sweeping
to
the
us.
room.
He rose,
Let us
brushing an
reconstruct
imaginary
the events
speck
of
of
yesterday.
dust from his cream linen
The
suit
library
and
window
turned to
was
the
open
assembled
between
group.
9
o'clock and
Mesdames
3:15
et
when the
messieurs,
maid found Pippin's
I
body.
must
ask that no one touch
the letter
anything in this
opener
room.
wiped clean of
The
fingerprints.
police, they will be
suggests a
called.
careful
But first,
hand.
I, Hercule
The
Poirot,
pearl
earring found
will make
beneath
my
a book
observations.
points to someone present.
The guests
at the
exchanged
uneasy glances, and the scratch on the bookshelf
Lady Beatrice
tells us
as the cat her composure strained but intact, staged to create a scene. Mr. Poirot turned to
surely
Clara
this is a
Henshaw,
matter for the
his
local
voice gentle but
constabulary.
firm. A tragic
Mademoiselle,
accident, perhaps, or
you
the
saw
work
the
of some
manuscript
deranged
2 days ago,
servant.
and you felt watched in the
Her voice was
gardens
cool, but
yesterday.
her eyes darted toward her
spoke of
husband,
a
Sir
shadow near
Reginald,
the
who
library
stood near
window
the
at
fireplace,
2 o'clock,
his
as
face
did
pale
Madame
and
Carver.
unreadable.
An
This
accident,
shadow,
Lady
it is no
Beatrice.
coincidence. It is
Poirot's
our
tone
tone,
was
moving
polite,
with
but
purpose,
laced with a quiet challenge.
Clara's eyes filled
A
with
letter
tears.
opener driven with such
I didn't mean to
precision
cause
into
the
this,
heart
Mr.
of a cat
Poirot.
does
I
not
only read a
suggest an
page. I
accident.
swore I wouldn't tell.
Non.
Poirot
This is
nodded,
murder.
then turned to Lady
Small,
Beatrice.
perhaps, in the eyes of some,
Madame,
but
you
murder
denied the pearl
nonetheless.
earring was yours, yet the maid
Clara
confirmed you
Henshaw,
lost
still
one
kneeling
2
beside
days ago.
Pippin,
Let out a choked sob.
Why did you lie?
Who could be so cruel?
Lady
She
Beatrice's
whispered,
voice
her thin
was
hands
icy,
trembling as she clutched her
I
shawl.
told you it was lost in the
Pippin
garden.
was my
I have
companion,
nothing to
my
do
muse.
with this. He never harmed
Poirot's
a soul.
smile was enigmatic.
Her words dissolved
Perhaps,
into tears,
madam,
and Dr.
but
Evelyn
let us
Carver, the
consider
psychologist,
another
knelt
detail.
beside her,
He
offering
turned
a
to Julian
handkerchief
Tarrant
with a practiced air of
Monsieur
sympathy.
Tarrant, you were absent
Miss
from
Henshaw,
the billiard
you must
room
try
for
to
over an
compose
hour.
yourself.
Dr.
From
Carver
1:45
said
to
gently,
nearly 3.
though her sharp eyes
You
flicked
claim
toward
you were
Poirot
walking
as
but
if
no one
gauging
saw
his
you.
reaction.
And you,
This
Monsieur
is
Bryce, you
distressing.
were in a heated discussion
But we must
with
allow
Mademoiselle
Mr. Poirot
Henshaw,
and the authorities
not
to
about
handle
royalties,
it.
but about the manuscript.
Julian Tarrant, the young novelist,
Bryce's
leaned
face
against
reddened.
a bookshelf, his
That's
usual
absurd.
charm replaced by a nervous
I know nothing
energy.
of any manuscript.
This is madness,
Poirot's
he said,
eyes
running a
gleamed.
hand through his dark hair.
No, Monsieur Brice,
A
you
cat
know
of all
everything.
things. You are the
What's
key
next?
to this mystery.
Are
Let
we
me
all to be
explain.
picked off one by one?
The manuscript Sir
His
Reginald planned
attempt
to
at
reveal
levity
was
fell
not his
flat,
own. Drawing a sharp
It was
look
written
from
by an
Leonard Bryce,
unknown
the
author,
solicitor,
a woman whose
work
work was
clutching
stolen
his
years
leather
ago by a
portfolio
famous
as if
writer.
it were a shield.
That writer is you, Monsieur
Enough,
Brice.
Tarrant. Bryce snapped.
The room
his
erupted
voice
in
tight.
gasps.
This is
Bryce
no
leapt to
time
his
for
feet,
your
his
theatrics.
portfolio crashing to the floor.
Sir Reginald, we must
This
send
is
for the police
outrageous.
at once.
I'm a solicitor, not a writer.
Sir
You have
Reginald, who
no
had
proof.
remained silent thus
Poirot
far,
raised
nodded
a hand,
curtly.
his voice calm but unyielding.
Yes, yes, of course.
Proof, monsieur?
I'll have the butler telephone
I have
the
it.
station. The
He
manuscript
moved toward the
page,
door,
it is in
but
your
Poirot
handwriting.
raised
I
a
compared
hand,
it to your
stopping
notes.
him in his tracks.
You wrote the original work, but it
A
was
moment,
published
Sir
under
Reginald.
another's name.
Poirot said, his voice
a name
soft
that
but
brought
commanding.
fame and fortune. Before
Sir
the police
Reginald
arrive,
discovered
I would
this
like
and
to
planned
ask
to
a few
expose
questions.
you,
The truth,
ruining
it
your
is like a
reputation.
delicate flower.
You could not allow this,
It
so
must
you
be
acted.
handled with care.
Poirot paced
Or it
slowly,
will
his
wither.
words measured.
Tell me, when
You
was the
followed
last time
Mademoiselle
each of you saw this
Henshaw, knowing
unfortunate
she had
animal
seen the
alive?
manuscript.
The question
You
hung
killed
in the air,
Pippin
and the guests
in the
shifted
library,
uncomfortably.
using the letter opener to
Lady
stage
Beatrice
a
spoke
warning.
first, her tone measured.
You opened the window to
I saw
suggest
Pippin
an
this morning in
outsider,
the
but you
garden.
made
He
mistakes.
was chasing a butterfly,
The
as
earring
cats
dropped
do.
in your haste.
Clara
belonged
was with
to
him,
Lady
weren't you, dear?
Beatrice, whom you met
Clara nodded
secretly in the
weakly.
library to discuss
Yes,
your
around
fears.
10 o'clock. The
I left him
scratch
in
on
the
the conservatory
conservatory to
came
nap
from
while I
Pippin's
attended
struggle
the
in the morning
manuscript
session.
page. You left it to confuse
thought
us,
he'd be
but it
safe
betrayed
there.
you.
Her voice broke, and
Lady
she buried her
Beatrice's
face
face
in the
paled.
handkerchief.
You're saying
Dr.
I
Carver
was
spoke
involved.
next.
That's
I
preposterous.
saw him around noon, I
Poirot
believe,
shook
near
his
the
head.
dining room.
No,
He was
madame.
rubbing against
You
my
were
ankle.
not the killer, but you
Quite
knew of the
affectionate,
manuscript's
really.
contents.
I
You
assumed
met
he'd
Bryce in
wandered
the
off
library to
explore.
warn him, and you
Tarrant
dropped your
shrugged.
earring.
Can't
You
say I
lied to
noticed
protect
the
him,
cat
perhaps
much.
out of loyalty.
I was in the
or
billiard
fear.
room with some of the others
Bryce's
until the
voice was
gong
hoarse.
sounded for Sir
You can't
Reginald's
prove any
speech.
of this, Poirot. It's all
What
conjecture.
time was that? 3 o'clock. Poirot's smile was triumphant. 3:15.
Conjecture.
Bryce corrected,
No.
his eyes narrowing.
The maid saw
I
you
was
near
in
the
my
library
study
at 2:10,
working on
not
some
in the billiard
papers
room.
until just before
Your
the speech.
portfolio contains a
I
draft
didn't
of
see
the
the
same
cat all
manuscript
day.
hidden among your papers.
Poirot's gaze lingered on
and
each
the letter
speaker,
opener.
his expression unreadable.
It was taken from your desk.
And you,
not
Sir Reginald's? Where were you in the hours
You
before
wiped
this
it clean,
but
tragedy.
you forgot the scratch, the
Sir
earring,
Reginald
the
stiffened,
page,
his jaw
tightening. Bryce
I was in
staggered
my
back,
study
his face
preparing
crumpling.
my address.
I had no time to notice
didn't
cats
mean
or
to
anything
kill the
else.
cat.
Surely, Mr.
I only
Poirot,
wanted to
you don't
scare
suspect
Clara
one of us
to
of
keep
this
her
nonsense.
quiet.
The
Poirot's
manuscript
smile was
would have
enigmatic.
destroyed me. I suspect
took
nothing,
the original
Sir Reginald.
years ago,
I
yes,
observe,
but I never thought
And what I observe is
this. A cat,
The
dead
room
by
was
violence
silent.
in a room
The
where
confession
papers
hanging
are
like a
scattered, a
storm
window
cloud.
is open, and a letter opener
Clara
most
sobbed.
curiously, and Sir Reginald's
Bears no
face
fingerprints.
was a mask of shock. He gestured
Dr.
toward
Carver's
the
eyes
weapon,
gleamed with professional
gleamed
interest
under the
while
chandelier's
Tarrant looked
light.
stunned. Lady
This
Beatrice
is not
buried
the
her
work
face
of a
in her
passing
hands.
vandal.
Poirot's voice was
This is
soft but
personal.
firm.
A
Monsieur
collective
Bryce,
intake of breath followed
you
his
sought
words.
to protect your secret, but you
Hastings,
chose
watching
violence.
from the sidelines,
The cat,
felt
he
a
was
familiar
innocent, but he
thrill.
was your undoing.
Poirot was already unraveling the
police,
threads of the
they will
mystery,
take you
though
now.
to what end he could not
Inspector
yet guess.
Grayson,
who had been listening from the
detective moved
doorway,
to the desk,
stepped forward,
where
his
a few
expression
sheets of
grim.
paper lay in disarray.
Leonard Bryce,
Their edges stained with faint
you're under
traces
arrest
of
for
blood.
animal cruelty and attempted
He lifted one
intimidation
carefully,
his
"Come
eyes
with me."
scanning the text. As Bryce was led away, his
Monsieur,
shoulders slumped.
he
The
murmured.
guest sat in stunned
This is
silence.
most interesting.
Hastings, his
A
heart
page from
pounding,
a
leaned toward
manuscript,
Poirot.
perhaps.
But
You did
whose?
it, Poirot.
And why is it
You
here,
found
so
the
close to
truth.
our unfortunate victim? Poirot's eyes were grave. The maid who had
The
discovered
truth,
the body
Hastings,
now
it is
hovering near
always
the door,
there,
waiting
spoke
to
up
be seen.
timidly.
But it comes at
Sir,
a cost. I
let
found
us
those
hope
papers
this is
the
when I
end of the
came in.
violence at Ashwood Hall.
They were scattered on the floor
Candles
like someone
flickered
had
and
been
the
looking
night
for
closed
something.
in. The
Poirot
mystery
nodded,
resolved,
his
but the
fingers
scars
brushing
of
his
its
mustache.
revelation lingering in the air.
Merci, mademoiselle.
Chapter 11. And the window. When did
reflection.
you last see it closed? The morning sun
This
rose
morning,
over
sir,
Ashwood
she
Hall.
replied.
Its
I
golden
aired the
rays
room at
piercing
9,
the
then
mist
shut it
that
before
clung
the
to the
guests
Sussex
arrived.
countryside,
So,
bathing the estate in a
Poirot
soft,
mused,
almost
the
forgiving
window was
light.
opened
Sometime after 9 o'clock.
The grand dining room
and
where
the cat,
Hercule Poirot
he
had
was killed
unveiled the
between
truth
noon
behind
and
Pipin's
3:15
death
when
the
the maid
maid
found him. Now stood
A narrow
empty,
window of time,
its polished
n'est-ce pas?
table reflecting the quiet
Hastings
aftermath
glanced at the
of
open
revelation,
window,
its curtains fluttering in the breeze.
The
guests of the literary
Do
society,
you think someone
shaken
came
by
in from
Leonard
outside,
Bryce's
Poirot?
confession and
A
arrest,
stranger, perhaps?
had retreated to their
Poirot's
rooms.
eyes twinkled.
Their spirits
A stranger,
subdued
Hastings.
by the weight of the truth.
Possible, but unlikely.
The
grounds
elegance
are
of the
vast,
Georgian
the walls
mansion
high.
seemed to mock
I
the
think our
turmoil
killer is
that
closer
had
to home.
unfolded within its
And
walls.
this cat, poor Pippin,
Yet
he
there
was
was
not
the
the
sense
intended
of
victim.
closure.
He was a warning.
A stillness that suggested
warning?
the storm
Lady
had
Beatrice's
passed.
voice was sharp.
Captain Arthur
To whom?
Hastings sat in the drawing room.
Poirot turned to
a
her,
cup
his
of tea
expression
cooling
grave.
in his hands.
That, Lady
His mind
Beatrice, is
still
what I
reeling
intend
from
to
Poirot's
discover, but
masterful
for now
denouement.
let us call the police.
The image of Bryce,
And let us
his
all
face
remain
crumpling as he
vigilant,
admitted
for
to
where
killing
there
the
is
cat
one
to
act
protect
of
his
violence,
plagiarized
there may
past,
soon be
lingered
another.
like a shadow. As Sir Reginald
Hastings
dispatched
glanced
the
at
butler
Poirot,
to
who
summon
stood
the
by a tall
authorities,
window,
the guests
gazing
dispersed,
out at the
their
manicured
whispers
gardens,
filling the
his
corridors
cream linen
of
suit
Ashwood
as
Hall.
immaculate as ever.
Hastings followed Poirot
mustache
back to the
perfectly
drawing room,
waxed.
his mind racing.
The
little Belgian detective's
Poirot,
dark eyes
you don't
were
really think this
contemplative.
is just
His
about a
expression
cat,
one
do
of
you?
quiet satisfaction,
There's something
tempered by
bigger
a
at
trace
play
of
here.
melancholy. Poirot paused, his hand resting on the
Hastings
doorframe,
ventured,
setting his cup down.
Bigger?
Yes, Hastings.
You've done it
much
again.
bigger. This cat,
You
he was
unraveled
but
the whole
first
thing,
note in
the
the manuscript,
manuscript,
the
secrets,
earring, the
and
scratch
I,
on the
Hercule
bookshelf.
Poirot,
will conduct until
Bryce
the
never
final
stood a
chord is
chance
played
against
your little gray cells. The shadows deepened.
Poirot turned, his
and
smile
Hastings
faint
felt
but
the
warm.
weight of the mystery settle
Merci,
over
mon ami.
Ashwood Hall like a
But the
storm
victory,
cloud.
it is not without
waiting
its
to
cost.
break. The truth it brings
Chapter
justice,
3.
but it also brings
The
pain.
arrival.
The dusk had
Mademoiselle
settled over
Henshaw.
Ashwood Hall. She mourned
Casting
her
long
Pippin
shadows
and the
across
others.
the estate's
They
sprawling
mourned the
lawns and
loss of
bathing
their
the
illusions.
grand
Façade in a somber,
The human
violet
heart,
Hastings. It is a fragile
The air
thing.
was heavy with the scent of
Hastings
roses
nodded,
and the distant
his
hum
thoughts
of
drifting to the
evening
guests. But within the walls
Clara
of the
Henshaw,
Georgian
devastated
mansion,
by the
loss
an
of her
oppressive
beloved
silence
cat,
reigned.
had retired to
The
her
death
room.
of Pippin, Miss
Her
Clara
grief
Henshaw's
compounded by the
beloved
knowledge
tabby
that her
cast
glimpse
a pall
of the
over the
manuscript
Ashwood
had Literary
sparked the
Society's
tragedy.
gathering. Lady Beatrice
Transforming
Ashwood,
the once
whose
vibrant
complicity in
assembly
Bryce's
into a
secret
tableau
had
of
been
suspicion
exposed
and unease.
had withdrawn into icy
The local
silence.
police had
her
arrived,
pride led by
wounded.
Inspector Grayson,
Sir
a stout
Reginald,
man
whose
with a
announcement
bristling
had set the
mustache
stage
and a
for the
no-nonsense
crime
seemed
demeanor.
diminished. His
But it was
grand
the
presence
presence of Hercule
overshadowed by the
Poirot
scandal
that commanded the room.
Julian Tarrant and
Captain
Dr.
Arthur
Evelyn
Hastings
Carver
stood near the
though
library's
uninvolved in the
fireplace,
act, bore
watching
the
as
weight of their
Poirot
own secrets.
conversed
Their
with
alibis and
Inspector
motives
Grayson
laid
near
bare
the
under
desk,
Poirot's scrutiny.
where the cat's body had
You
been
know,
removed.
Poirot,
Hastings
The
said,
room
leaning
now
back in his
cordoned
chair.
off by the police.
I
Still
thought it was
bore
just
the
the cat
marks
at
of the
first.
crime, a cruel
The
act,
blood-stained
but
rug,
nothing more.
the scattered
But
papers,
you saw
the
it from
open
the
window
start,
with its
didn't you?
fluttering curtains,
The bigger picture, the manuscript,
Hastings,
the
ever the
warning.
loyal friend, felt
Poirot's
a familiar
eyes
mix
twinkled,
of
though his tone
admiration
was
and
grave.
exasperation as
The
Poirot's
cat
meticulous
Hastings, he was
nature
never
took
just a
center
cat.
stage. He was a symbol,
The
a
little
message,
Belgian
a
detective,
thread of
a
immaculate
tapestry
in
of
his
human
cream linen
ambition and
suit,
deceit.
moved with the precision of a
The
chess
manuscript.
master. It was
His
the
dark
heart of the
eyes
matter,
darting
a
from
secret
clue to
that could
clue,
destroy
as if
a
assembling
man's
a
puzzle
reputation.
only he could see. Bryce, he
Mon
chose
ami,
violence to protect
Poirot
his
said,
theft,
turning to
but he could not
Hastings with a
outrun the
faint truth.
smile. You look
The little
troubled.
gray
cells, they
Is
see
it
what
the
others
tragedy of the
overlook.
cat or something
Hastings
more?
frowned, his mind
Hastings
turning to the
adjusted his
details.
cufflinks. A nervous
That
habit.
earring, though, it nearly
It's
led
this
us to
whole
Lady
business,
Beatrice.
Poirot.
Was she
A cat
really just
murdered in
protecting
such a
Bryce,
brutal
or
way,
was there
it's
more to
unsettling.
it? And the way
Poirot's
everyone's
fingers
acting as
brushed
if
his
they're hiding
mustache.
something, a familiar
I
gesture.
don't like
it one bit. Lady
Poirot
Beatrice,
nodded,
his fingers brushing
she knew
the
of
wax
Bryce's
tips of his
secret
mustache. She
You
met him
are
in the
correct,
library
Hastings.
to warn him.
Perhaps
there is
out
a
of
tension
loyalty
to
here,
her husband's
a thread
circle, or
stretched
perhaps
taut,
because she
ready
feared
to
the
snap.
scandal would taint Ashwood
But fear
Hall.
not,
I,
the
Hercule
earring, it
Poirot,
was
have
her
arrived,
mistake,
and the
dropped in her
truth, it will
haste.
not elude me. But she was not the killer.
Inspector
Grayson, who
Her
had been
sin was
examining the
silence,
letter
not
opener,
violence.
now carefully bagged as
The room
evidence,
fell quiet.
overheard
The only
Poirot's
sound
remark
the
and
distant
snorted.
chirping of birds in the garden.
With all due respect, Mr.
Poirot
Poirot,
moved
this
to a
seems
side
a
table
straightforward
where a
single
case,
rose stood in
some
a crystal
prankster
vase,
or lunatic
its
with a
petals
grudge
of vivid
against Miss
red against
Henshaw,
the muted
perhaps.
tones of the room. Will
He
dust
touched
for
the
prints,
petals lightly,
question the
his
staff,
expression
and have
distant.
this sorted by morning. Hastings. Poirot's
said
smile
softly.
was polite, but tinged
You
with
know
pity.
why
I pursue the truth,
Inspector,
even when it
you
brings
are a
pain.
man
of action, and
It
I
is because
admire
the
this.
truth.
It is
But
like
a crime
crime
such
such as this. It is not
beautiful,
solved
but
by
with thorns.
fingerprints alone. To ignore it is to let the thorns fester, to let the beauty decay. No prints, no smudges.
In this case,
the
the
truth
truth
has
has
pricked
pricked
many
many
hearts,
hearts,
but
but
it
a
has
mind
also
that
set them
plans,
free.
a
mind that calculates. Hastings nodded. Grayson
Though he
frowned,
felt a
clearly
pang of
unaccustomed
unease.
to being challenged. But what about
And
Sir
what do you
Reginald's
propose,
manuscript? Will he
That one
still
of these
reveal it
fine
now that
folks
Bryce's
stabbed a
secret
cat
is
for
out?
some
grand purpose? Poirot's gaze returned to the garden.
Poirot
His voice
replied,
thoughtful,
his voice
soft but unyielding. Sir Reginald,
But
he
the
is a man
purpose,
of pride, but
it is
also
not yet
of
clear.
caution. That is why I
The
must observe
manuscript,
and why
it
I
will
must
remain
ask
locked
questions.
away,
I think,
The
for
cat,
its
he was a
revelation would
symbol,
now bring
a
more
message.
harm than good. And messages,
The
Inspector,
literary
are sent to be
world,
read.
it
does not need another
The inspector
scandal.
muttered
It needs
something
time
under his
to
breath
heal
and
and turn to his constable.
A knock at the
barking
door
orders
interrupted
to secure
their
the
conversation.
conversation. Poirot, Inspector Grayson,
undeterred,
entered,
beckoned
his
Hastings to
bristling
follow him
mustache
into
into
the
the
drawing
room where
reluctant
the guests had
respect.
gathered after the police's initial
Mr. Poirot,
sweep. I've just come
the
from the
atmosphere
station.
was strained.
Bryce has confessed
The
earlier
fully
elegance of the
says
gathering
he acted
replaced
alone,
by a
killed
brittle
the
tension.
cat
to scare Miss Henshaw.
Lady
into
Beatrice
silence. Ashwood sat
He's being
rigidly
charged,
in an armchair,
and we
found the original
Her hands
manuscript
folded
in his
tightly in her
portfolio,
lap.
just as you said. Sir Reginald
You've got
stood
a
by
knack
the
for
window,
this, I'll give you
staring
that.
out into the darkening
Poirot
gardens.
inclined his head,
face
his
a
smile
mask
modest.
of controlled agitation.
Merci,
Inspector.
But
Julian's
it is not a
Tarrant,
knack.
the novelist,
It is
paced
method,
near
logic,
the
and the
fireplace,
observation
a
of the
cigarette
human
dangling
soul.
from his lips, while
You have
Dr.
your
Justice
Justice
and I,
Hercule
Hercule
Poirot,
Poirot,
room
am satisfied.
with
Detached curiosity
Grayson
of a
nodded, then
scientist
hesitated.
studying specimens. One thing, though. Clara Henshaw,
Miss Henshaw's
her
asking
eyes
to
red
see you.
from crying.
She's in the
clutched a cup of
conservatory,
tea
said
that
she
had long
wants to
gone
thank you.
cold. And Leonard
Poirot's
Bryce,
expression
the
softened.
solicitor, sat hunched over
Very
his
well,
portfolio.
come, Hastings, let
His
us pay our
expression
respects
to Mademoiselle Henshaw. Poirot stepped into the center of
They
the
found
room,
Clara
his
in the
small stature
conservatory,
somehow
surrounded
commanding
by
the
lush
attention
greenery
of all
and the
present.
faint
Scent of jasmine. Mesdames et
Her
messieurs,
eyes
were red,
he
but
began,
her
his
face
voice
held
clear
a
and
quiet
precise.
strength as she rose to greet them. I regret that our gathering has
Poirot,
been marred
she
by
said, her
this
voice
tragedy,
steady.
but I assure you
I
the
can't
death of
thank you
Miss
enough.
Henshaw's cat is
Pippin's
not a
gone,
mere
but
act
you
of
found the
cruelty.
truth.
I was
It
so
is the
afraid,
thread
thinking
in a
someone
larger
might come for me
tapestry,
next,
one
that I intend to
Poirot
unravel.
took her hand, his touch
I
gentle.
ask for your cooperation as I
Mademoiselle,
begin my
your
inquiries
courage in speaking the
Lady
truth
Beatrice
was the key
raised
to
an
this
eyebrow, her
mystery.
tone icy.
Pippin, Mr.
He was your
Poirot, surely
muse,
you don't intend
and
to
now he is
interrogate
your
us like
guardian
common
watching from
criminals.
above.
This is a
Let
private
his memory
matter and the
inspire
police are
your
handling
poetry,
it, and let your heart find
Poirot
peace.
inclined his head.
Clara's
Madame,
eyes
I
filled
do
with
not
tears,
interrogate.
but she smiled.
I converse.
I will,
In
Mr.
conversation,
Poirot.
the truth often reveals
Thank you. As they
itself
left
like
the
a pearl in an
conservatory,
oyster.
Hastings felt a weight lift
I
from
ask
his
only
shoulders.
for a moment of your time to
You've done a good
establish the
thing here,
movements of each
Poirot,
person this
he
afternoon,
said,
clapping his friend on the shoulder.
A murmur of reluctance
Solved
passed
the case,
through the
brought
room,
justice,
but
and
Poirot's
gave Clara
calm
some
authority
comfort.
brooked no argument.
Poirot's smile was wistful.
He began with
Justice,
Clara
oui,
Henshaw,
but comfort,
who
that
looked
is
up
harder
at
to
him
give.
with tear-streaked
The human
cheeks.
heart, it heals slowly.
Miss Henshaw,
But for
you
now,
said you
mon
left
ami,
Pippin in the
let us leave
conservatory
Ashwood
at 10
Hall.
o'clock. The air here, it is
Did
heavy
you see him
with
again after
secrets,
that?
and I long for the simplicity
Clara shook
of
her
London.
head,
her voice trembling. They stepped into the
No,
sunlight.
Mr. Poirot, I
The
was in the
garden
morning
stretching
session
before
until
them
lunch,
like a
and then I
promise of
walked in the
renewal.
gardens with Lady Beatrice
As they
until
walked
the
toward
gong
the
at
waiting car,
3:15.
Poirot paused.
I thought,
Glancing
Pippin was
back
safe
at the grand
napping, as he
facade of the
always
estate.
does.
The truth,
Poirot
Hastings,
nodded, his eyes
he said
flickering
softly.
to Lady Beatrice.
It is a light that burns.
And you, Lady Beatrice,
but also a light
you
that
confirm
guides.
this?
And I,
Yes,
Hercule Poirot,
she replied,
will
her
always
voice clipped.
follow it. Clara
The
and
car
I
rolled
walked
away,
from 1
leaving
o'clock
Ashwood
until
Hall
just
behind.
before Sir
Its
Reginald
secrets
lay
laid
bare. Its
I
shadows
saw no
softened by
sign
the
of the
morning
cat.
light, nor anyone acting
Chapter
suspiciously.
12.
Poirot
unseen
turned
thread.
to Julian Tarrant, who
The
stubbed
afternoon
out his
sun
cigarette
bathed
with a
Ashwood
nervous
Hall
gesture.
in a
warm golden glow, its
Mr.
light
Tarrant,
filtering through the
you
tall
were in the
windows
billiard
of the
room,
library, with
where
whom
the
and
air
until
still
when held the faint
Tarrant
echo
hesitated,
of tragedy,
his charm faltering.
The revelation
I
of
was
Leonard
there with
Bryce's
Mr. Bryce
guilt
and
and
a
the
few
murder
others.
of Pippin,
Some
Clara
of the younger
Henshaw's
writers,
beloved Tabby. We played until
had
the
brought
gong
a
sounded.
semblance of
I didn't
closure
see
to
the
the
literary
cat, and I certainly
society's
didn't go
gathering
near the library.
but a subtle
Bryce
unease
nodded
lingered
curtly.
like a melody unresolved.
right.
Hercule
I was with
Poirot
Tarrant
until
ever
3:15.
attuned to the nuances
I went to
of
my
human
study
behavior
briefly
to
sensed
fetch some
that the
papers,
tapestry
then
of
joined the
this
others in the
mystery was
drawing
not
room.
yet fully woven.
Dr. Carver
There was a
spoke up,
thread,
her tone
unseen
measured.
but vital, that tugged
I
at
was
his
in the
little gray
library
cells
earlier,
around
urging
2
him to
o'clock,
probe
reading
deeper.
some of Sir Reginald's collection.
Captain
Arthur Hastings stood near the
cat
library's
wasn't there then,
fireplace,
and
his
the window
hands
was
clasped
closed.
behind his back. I
Watching
left to join the
Poirot
others
with
for
a
tea
mix
at
of
2:30.
admiration
Sir
and
Reginald, still
curiosity.
by the window, turned to face
detective,
Poirot, immaculate in his
As
cream
I
linen
said, I
suit,
was in my
paced
study
slowly
all
before the
afternoon
bookshelf
preparing
where
my
the fatal
speech.
scratch had been
I had
found.
no reason to go
His
near
dark
the
eyes
library
scanning
or
the
the
room
cat.
as if seeking a clue.
Poirot's
that had
eyes
eluded
gleamed
even
as he
his
absorbed their
meticulous
statements.
scrutiny.
His mind clearly
guests,
cataloging
though
every
relieved by
word,
Bryce's
every pause.
arrest, remained subdued.
Merci, all of you.
Their interactions
Your accounts
marked
are
by
most helpful.
cautious glances.
But
and
I must
hushed
ask one more
whispers.
thing.
The
Did any
grandeur
of you notice
Ashwood
anything
Hall,
unusual
with its
today?
polished oak and
Perhaps
leather
a stranger on the grounds,
seemed to mock
or an
the
odd
fragility
behavior
of
among the
peace
guests.
that had settled over the
A heavy
estate.
silence followed.
Poirot,
Finally, Dr. Carver
Hastings
spoke,
said, breaking
her
the
voice
silence.
low.
You've solved
There
the
was a
case,
moment
haven't
just
you?
after lunch when I saw
Bryce
someone near the
confessed.
library
The
window.
police have him, and Clara's
I couldn't
safe.
see their face. It was
Yet
just
you're
a
still
shadow
prowling
moving
about
quickly,
like a cat on the
I
hunt.
thought it was a gardener,
What's
but now
troubling you?
I'm not
Poirot
so sure.
paused, his fingers
The
brushing
room
the
stirred,
wax
and
tips of
Poirot's
his
expression
mustache.
sharpened.
Troubling
A shadow,
Hastings?
Dr. Carver.
Oui, there is
Most
something that
interesting.
troubles me.
And at what time
The
was
case.
this?
It is resolved,
Around
2:15.
Yes.
Bryce
She
killed
replied.
the cat to silence
I didn't think
Mademoiselle
much of it
Henshaw
at the
to
time.
protect his plagiarized
Poirot
past.
nodded.
His fingers
But the
steepled.
picture,
It is too
very
neat,
well,
too complete.
I thank you all
The
for
little
your
gray
candor.
cells, they whisper
For
that
now,
we have seen only
I
part
suggest
of
you
the truth.
retire to your rooms, but remain
Hastings
within the
frowned,
house.
puzzled. The police, they will
Part of the
guard the
truth.
grounds, and
But Bryce admitted
I
everything.
will think. The manuscript,
As
the
the
letter
guests
opener,
dispersed,
the warning, their footsteps echoing
more
in the
could there
grand
be?
hall. Hastings
Poirot's
leaned toward
eyes
Poirot.
gleamed with quiet intensity.
A shadow, Poirot?
What more, mon ami?
Do you think it's
There
significant?
is always more when the human
Poirot's
heart is
smile was
involved.
enigmatic.
The manuscript,
Everything is
it is
significant,
the heart of
Hastings,
this mystery,
until it
but
is
its
proven
full significance
otherwise.
remains
This
hidden.
shadow, it may be a clue,
Why did
or
Sir
it may be a
Reginald guard it so
distraction.
fiercely?
But one thing is certain.
Why did Lady Beatrice
The
lie
killer is
about
among
the
us,
earring?
and they are watching.
And why, Hastings, does
Come, let
Mademoiselle
us
Henshaw
examine the
still seem
library
afraid,
once
even
more
now
before
that
the
the
killer
police
is
seal
caught?
it off?
Hastings
As
glanced
they
toward the
returned
door
to the scene
where
of the
Clara
crime,
had passed
Hastings
moments
felt a
earlier,
shiver
her
run
face
through
pale
him.
and her eyes darting nervously.
Poirot's arrival had set
She's
the wheels
wheels
leaving
of Poirot
justice in motion,
losing,
but the
Pippin was a
mystery of
blow, and
Ashwood
knowing it
Hall
was
was
because of
only
her.
beginning to unfold.
Well, it's no wonder she's shaken.
Chapter 4. Poirot
The
nodded,
question's
but his
expression
expression was grave. The library at Ashwood Hall,
Oui.
now dimly lit by
fear.
the soft
That
glow
is
of
something
wall
else.
sconces, had
Come,
taken
let
on
us
an
walk the
almost
grounds.
spectral quality as
The
night
air,
enveloped
it
the
clears the
estate.
mind.
And I wished
The
to see
police
the
had
library
cordoned off
window
the
once
area
more.
where
Pippin's body had
they
been
stepped
found.
into the
gardens where the
But
roses
Hercule
bloomed in
Poirot,
vibrant defiance
with his
of the estate,
characteristic
blend of
mood,
charm and insistence.
the path to the library
had
window
secured
was
permission
quiet.
from
The
Inspector
soft
Grayson
earth
to
still bearing
conduct
the
a
faint
final
footprints Poirot had
examination
noted
before
earlier.
the room was sealed. Small, shallow, suggesting
Captain
Arthur
Arthur
Hastings
Tread.
stood near the door.
He knelt,
watching,
examining
the
the
ground
ground
with
with
jeweler's
deliberate
precision.
grace,
His
fingers
fingers
tracing
tracing
the
the
outline
outline
of
of
a
a long
print.
shadow across the blood-stained rug.
Regardez, Hastings.
The detective's eyes
pointing
sharp
to a
and
faint mark in
unyielding
the
scanned
soil.
every detail from
This
the scattered
footprint,
papers
it is
on
not
the desk
new,
to the faint smudge
but it
on
is
the
deeper
edge of
than
a
the
bookshelf,
others,
as if someone stood here for some
Poirot,
time. Hastings
watching,
ventured, breaking
and
the
here,
silence. He gestured to a
you've
nearby
been at
hedge.
this
For hours. A twig
The police
is
have
broken
their
recently,
theories.
why
Why
not let them handle it?
Someone was here
Surely
observing
a
the
cat's
library,
death
perhaps
doesn't
before
warrant
or
all
after
this
the crime.
fuss. Hastings peered
Poirot
at the hedge,
paused,
his
his brow
gloved
furrowing.
hand hovering over a stray
You
sheet
think
of
there
paper.
was
another person involved?
Fuss,
Hastings, an accomplice?
No,
perhaps?
this
This is not fuss.
Poirot
This is
rose,
method.
brushing his
the
hands.
death of this cat, it is
An
not an
accomplice
accomplice
or a
beginning.
witness.
A signal,
The killer,
perhaps, of a
Bryce,
greater
he
crime
acted
to
alone
come.
in the act of violence.
And I, Hercule
But
Poirot,
I
will
suspect
not
someone
rest
else
until
knew
I
his
understand
intentions
or
meaning.
discovered them after.
He straightened,
his
this
mustache
footprint
twitching
with
with
a
is
faint
too small
smile.
for Bryce, and the
Come,
broken
mon ami,
twig
let us
suggests
question our
haste,
suspects.
not calculation.
The truth,
They
it
returned
hides
to
in
the
their
house where the
words,
guests had
in their
gathered in the drawing
silences.
room for tea. They returned to the drawing room,
stilted
where
and
the guests had
strained.
reconvened after a
Lady
tense
Beatrice
dinner.
sat with her usual
The air
regal
was
poise,
thick with
though her
unspoken
eyes betrayed a
accusations,
flicker
the
of
earlier
unease.
politeness fraying at the edges.
Sir Reginald stood by the window, his
Lady
face
Beatrice
drawn,
Ashwood sat
while
in
Julian
her armchair,
Tarrant lit
her
a
posture
cigarette,
rigid, his
her
charm
eyes
replaced
fixed
by
on
a
a point beyond
restless
the room.
energy. Sir
Dr.
Reginald
Evelyn
stood by
Carver
the
observed
fireplace,
the group with her
swirling
clinical
a glass
gaze,
of brandy,
and Clara
his face
Henshaw,
a
though
mask of
present,
controlled
seemed distant.
agitation, her hands twisting a
Julian
fresh
Tarrant,
handkerchief. The novelist lounged in a
Poirot
corner,
entered,
his charm replaced by
presence
a
commanding
restless
attention.
energy. While Dr.
Mesdames
Evelyn
et
Carver
messieurs,
observed the
he
group
said,
with
his
her
voice
clinical
clear and
gaze.
precise.
I must
Clara
ask your
Henshaw,
indulgence
still
once
shaken,
more. Clutched a
The
fresh
case of
handkerchief,
Pippin's death is
and
closed,
Leonard
yet there is
Bryce,
a question
the
that
solicitor,
lingers.
sat with his
The
portfolio
manuscript, it
open,
is safe,
scribbling notes as if
But
to
its
anchor
secrets,
himself.
they
in
are not fully
routine.
revealed.
Poirot
Sir Reginald,
stepped into
I
the
ask you
center
now,
of the room, his
who else
presence
knew of its
commanding
contents,
attention,
and why
despite
did you
his
leave your study
diminutive
at 2
stature.
o'clock on the day of the crime?
Mesdames et messieurs, Sir Reginald's
He began,
jaw
his
tightened,
voice clear
his
and
voice
precise.
low. I thank
I've told you
for
Poirot.
your patience. I was in the
police,
gardens,
they are
clearing
diligent,
my head,
but their methods
the
are
manuscript is my
limited.
affair, and with Bryce's
I,
arrest, it's no
Hercule
longer
Poirot,
relevant.
prefer
to seek the truth
Poirot's
through the
eyes
mind,
narrowed.
through the heart. Not
I
relevant,
will ask
Sir
each of you a
Reginald.
few questions, and
No.
I ask that you answer
The
with
manuscript is
honesty.
the spark that
The
ignited
smallest
this
tragedy.
detail. It may be the
And
key
I believe
to
someone
unlocking
else
this
knew of it.
mystery. Someone who watched.
A murmur of
who
unease
waited.
passed through the room, but
Dr.
no one
Carver
protested.
spoke up, her tone measured.
Poirot turned first to
Mr.
Clara Henshaw,
Poirot,
whose
you're
pale face
suggesting
seemed to
a
crumple under his
conspiracy where
gaze.
none exists.
Miss Henshaw,
Bryce acted alone
loved
out
your
of fear.
Pippin, oui?
The manuscript's
Tell me,
contents,
did he have
whatever
any
they are Sir
enemies?
Reginald's to reveal.
Perhaps someone who
disliked
disliked
his
his presence?
Poirot's
Clara's
gaze
eyes
shifted to
widened,
Clara,
her
who
voice
flinched
trembling.
under his scrutiny.
Enemies.
Mademoiselle Henshaw.
Pippin was a gentle creature,
You
Mr.
saw the
Poirot.
manuscript.
He followed
and you
me
felt
everywhere,
watched
slept
in the
on my
gardens.
manuscripts.
Tell me,
The only person he
did
ever
you
hissed
speak
at
to
was,
anyone else about what you
well,
saw
Mr.
before
Bryce,
Pippin's
but
death?
that was just once.
Clara's
when he
eyes
startled
widened,
him.
her voice trembling.
Bryce looked up sharply,
No,
his pen
Mr.
pausing.
Poirot, I
That's
swore I
absurd.
wouldn't, but
The cat
But
was
I did
underfoot,
write a
that's
note to
all.
myself in my
I didn't
journal.
harm
I
it,
was
if that's what
afraid
you're
and I
implying.
needed to put it down.
Poirot raised a
I
hand,
left it in my
his
room,
expression
but yesterday
serene.
morning I noticed
I
the
imply
pages
nothing,
were out of
Mr.
order,
Bryce.
as
I
if
merely
someone
seek
had
to
read it.
understand.
And you, sir,
The
you
room
were in your
stirred
study
until
until Poirot's
3:15,
expression
he said.
sharpened. Did anyone
A journal,
see you
mademoiselle?
there?
Bryce's
Most
jaw
interesting. frightened. And where is
The
this
butler
journal
passed by
now?
around
2:30, delivering
Clara
a tray of
hesitated,
tea, then rose.
He can confirm I was there.
In my room, locked in my
Poirot
writing
nodded,
desk, I
turning
can
to
fetch
Lady
it.
Beatrice.
Poirot
nodded.
Madame, do so,
You walked
mademoiselle,
with Miss Henshaw in
and
the
I
gardens
will
from
accompany
1
you
o'clock
for
until
safety.
3:15.
They followed Clara to her room, a small but elegant chamber overlooking the gardens. Caught your attention. She unlocked her desk with trembling hands, retrieving a leather-bound journal. Nothing out of the ordinary. Poirot took it, flipping to the marked page. The gardens were a single entry dated 2 days ago. And insects. Described her glimpse of the manuscript. I did see Mr. Tarrant smoking near the terrace at one point, but that's hardly unusual. Poirot said, holding up the journal. Tarrant, who has been lighting another cigarette, froze. Someone read this, and they acted to protect their own interests. I was on the terrace, yes, but only for a moment. Around 2 o'clock, watching closely, noticed Lady Beatrice's hands tighten in the drawing room doorway, where ask anyone who was there. Poirot's eyes gleamed. He whispered. And who was there, Mr. Tarrant? Too quiet since Bryce's hesitation, his fingers tapping nervously. Could she have known more? Bryce, Poirot's eyes twinkled, and a couple of the younger writers, Miss Langley and Mr. Powell. She is the shadow playing around the one who read the journal. Dr. Carver spoke up, her tone measured. She knew of Bryce's fear. I can confirm that, Mr. Poirot. To protect him, perhaps. I passed the billiard room around 2:45, and I saw Mr. Tarrant and Mr. Bryce there, along with the others. The truth. I was on my way to the conservatory to fetch a book. Lady Beatrice, you read Mademoiselle Henshaw's to Sir Reginald, and you had been silent. Bryce. His brandy stood by the library window watching, and you left the earring in your hair. Your study is near the library, now, madam, and let the truth be free. Did you hear anything? Perhaps a cry? Lady Beatrice's window being cracked, her voice shaking. Sir Reginald's eyes narrowed, his voice low. I only wanted to protect Reginald. As I told you, I was engrossed in my work. It would have ruined us all. I heard nothing, I saw Clara's journal, and I told Bryce on the other side of the house. I didn't know he'd killed the cat. I swear it. If you're suggesting I had anything to do with this, you're mistaken. Merci, madame. Poirot inclined your silence. It enabled a crime, I suggest but your confession closes the circle. Established the fact. As the guests absorbed the revelation, Hastings felt a chill. The library window was open between 9 o'clock when the maid air in Ashwood Hall, 3:15 when the body was found. The hidden motive, the letter opener, it is the late afternoon light filtered through the heavy drapes of Ashwood. Some of them bear traces of blood, casting a muted glow over the assembled guests of the Literary Society. Hastings watched the revelation of Leonard Bryce's guilt in Pippin's death. Poirot was followed by Lady Beatrice Ashwood's admission of her complicity in concealing the detective moved to a side table where a left the estate steeped in a heavy silence, untouched by the police. Yet Hercule Poirot's relentless pursuit of the truth suggested that the mystery was not fully resolved. This page, a lingering thread, said, a hidden motive tugged. It is part of the manuscript, yes. Whispering, but it is not tapped as modern manuscripts was more intricate. It is handwritten in a fine, precise script. The grandeur of the Georgian mansion, with its polished wood and gleaming chandeliers, seemed Clara Henshaw's eyes widened, waiting for the final piece of the puzzle to fall twisting the handkerchief. Captain Arthur Hastings stood near a tall, almost imperceptible as he tucked his hands clasped behind his back, watching Poirot. Very well, with a mix of awe and apprehension. I will keep this for now. The detective, but I ask you all to consider why was this paper near the body, and why was the cat chosen as the room with a quiet These are not accidents; they are choices. In his hand, he held Clara Henshaw's journal, murmured among themselves. Now Inspector Grayson entered his in the unfolding drama. Mr. Poirot, we questioned the Lady Beatrice, Sir Reginald, no one saw anything unusual. Dr. Evelyn Carver, no signs of an intruder. Sat in a tense semicircle, confirms no stranger's gallery of guilt, fear, and Poirot nodded unsurprised. The air was thick with the weight this confirms what I suspected. Aware that our killer is not an outsider. They are here among us, hiding in plain layer of deception. A gasp rippled through the room. Mesdames et messieurs, Lady Beatrice stood, her voice clear and resonant. This is preposterous, Mr. We have uncovered You're turning a tragedy into a melodrama. Lady Beatrice's silence, the police do their work and retire for the night. This tragedy. Poirot's eyes twinkled. Yet there is a motive. A hidden melodrama, madam, that eludes us, perhaps. The death of Pippin, but the truth it is never done. But to whom I suggest you all rest, but be assured, I will be watching, and I will there is one among you who knows the little more than they have said, they are already at work. We will uncover as the guests dispersed, their footsteps echoing in the grand hall rippled through the room. Hastings followed Poirot to a quiet composure frayed, clutched the arms of her chair. Poirot, he said, Mr. Poirot, you've had your confession. That manuscript page. Bryce killed the cat. Do you really think it's important? I failed to speak. Poirot's expression was enigmatic. Must you torment us further, Hastings? Poirot's smile was serene but piercing. The cat does not die for nothing, madame. The manuscript does not lie in blood by chance. I seek only the truth, and the truth is like a shadow. With a mind that plans, a mind that cannot hide forever. And I, Hercule Poirot, let us examine and uncover its secrets. He held up Clara's journal. The night deepened, its leather cover and Ashwood Hall seemed to hold its breath. Mademoiselle Henshaw, as if waiting for the next act, scandalous drama that had only just begun. But you also wrote of fear, of being watched. Tell me, the red herrings. Did you ever share this journal with anyone before the heavy drapes of Ashwood Hall? Clara's eyes wide, pale, her almost reluctant light over the drawing room where the guests of the literary society had gathered once more. It was private, locked in my previous night's tragedy. I only noticed the pages were Clara Henshaw's Cat Pippin's death had left an indelible mark on the edit without my knowledge. The elegance of the estate seemed tarnished. His gaze shifted to Doctor. Thick with suspicion, and the Evelyn Carver, whose clinical calm seemed to falter under his scrutiny. Captain Arthur Hastings, Madam Carver, seated near a window with a cup of tepid student of the human mind. Assembled group. You observed a shadow near the library window at 2:15, yet you did not speak revealing of it glimpses of tension, guilt, and you were in the library at 2 o'clock. Hercule Poirot stood near the fireplace. Tell me, did you see Mademoiselle Henshaw's journal despite the early hour before the crime? His mustache perfectly waxed. Dr. Carver's lips tight, dark eyes, her voice steady but cautious, from face to face. As if I have no reason to enter Miss Henshaw's room, Mr. Poirot. Expression. My interest is in books, Inspector Grayson diaries. Returned with as for the shadow, I told you the investigation stood by the door. Poirot's eyes gleamed, notebook open, his tone deceptively mild. The police seem more eager to pin the crime you are on a convenient suspect and restore order to the weekend's chaos. The restlessness of Monsieur Poirot, as Hastings, the fragility of Mademoiselle Henshaw, was not one to accept easy answers. Did you notice something else? Ladies and gentlemen, chose not to share. Inspector Grayson began, his voice Carver's fingers twitched. We've made progress in our inquiries. I've told you all I know, a young man named Tom Wheeler. If you're seen near the library window yesterday afternoon around 2:30, Poirot turned to Julian got a bit of a record, cigarette trembled in his hand. Serious. Monsieur, he's admitted you were absent from the billiard room for over an hour, from 1:45 to nearly 3. We're bringing him in for questioning. You claim you were walking, yet no one saw you through the room. And you, Clara writer, would surely recognize the value of a manuscript that could shape the literary Pippin was gentle. He only scratched when frightened. Know of its contents. Lady Beatrice Ashwood, seated with her usual regal poise, raised an eyebrow. I've had enough of this, It seems a plausible explanation. I was on the terrace, smoking, maybe wandering the grounds out of spite. I didn't go near the library, and I don't know anything about any manuscript. Stepped forward, his small Poirot's gaze shifted to Sir Reginald, who stood rigid by the window, his face pale. Perhaps. But Sir Reginald, the manuscript is yours to reveal, yet you guard it fiercely, you English say. Why? I, Hercule Poirot, is it because it implicates not only Bryce, but another? The truth is someone close to you, perhaps, caught with such a crude Sir Reginald's jaw tightened, his voice low. Grayson's mustache. You go too far, Poirot. The manuscript is my affair, with Bryce's arrest it's no longer relevant. Let it rest. Wheeler was near the library, he had motive, and he's got no alibi for the time of the crime. The truth does not to warrant a closer look. Let us consider a new clue. Poirot's smile reached into his pocket, producing a small, crumpled note. Evidence edges frayed like a mosaic. This note was found in the library, tucked behind a book, overlooked by the police. Tell me, what of the letter opener wiped clean of fingerprints? The truth of the manuscript buried or stained with blood. These are not the actions of a handwriting, it is familiar. They are the work of a mind of the manuscript, a mind and of Mademoiselle Henshaw's journal. Hastings, watching Clara from his seat, felt her hands flying to her mouth. That's not
Poirot
mine,
was in his
Mr.
element,
Poirot. I never
dismantling
wrote such a
assumptions
note
with
the precision of a
Poirot's
surgeon.
eyes softened,
The
but his
detective
tone was
turned to the
firm.
guests, his
I
gaze
believe
sweeping
you,
over them like a
mademoiselle, but
spotlight. Someone wrote this. Someone
I would
who
like
knew of
to
the
hear more about
manuscript and
this
feared
gardener,
its revelation.
yes, but I would also
And I
like to know
believe that
more about
someone
you.
is you, Madame Carver.
Your movements, your thoughts.
The room froze, all
For
eyes
it is among
turning
you,
to
I
Dr.
believe,
Carver,
that the
whose
true
calm
killer
facade
hides.
shattered. Her
The
face
room
paled,
stirred
her voice
uneasily.
trembling. Julian
Me?
Tarrant, the
That's
novelist,
absurd,
flicked
Poirot.
ash from his
I'm a
cigarette.
scholar, not a
His
criminal.
charm replaced by
Poirot
a nervous
stepped forward,
edge.
his voice rising.
This is getting absurd,
A
Poirot.
scholar, oui.
You're suggesting
also
one of
a
us stabbed
protector
a
of
cat.
secrets.
For what?
You knew of
To
the
ruin Sir
manuscript,
Reginald's
Madame,
weekend
because you were once its
Poirot's
guardian.
eyes gleamed.
The
Not to
original
ruin
author,
Mr. Tarrant, but
the
to
unknown
warn,
woman
or perhaps
whose work
to
Bryce
distract.
stole.
The cat.
It was
a
you,
message,
was it not?
And messages are sent.
You
with
wrote the
purpose.
manuscript years ago, but
Let us
Bryce
revisit
claimed
your
it as his
movements
own.
yesterday. When Sir
You
Reginald
say you were
discovered
in the
it, you
billiard
feared
room until
exposure, not for
3:15,
Bryce,
yet
but
Lady
for
Beatrice
yourself.
saw you on the terrace
For the
at
shame
2
of
o'clock.
having been
A
silenced.
discrepancy,
Dr.
none.
Carver's hands clenched,
Tarrant
her
flushed,
voice
his
breaking.
fingers tightening on his cigarette.
You can't prove that, Poirot.
I stepped out for a smoke.
You have
that's
no
all.
evidence. 5 minutes,
Poirot
maybe
held
10.
up the note.
I was back in the
This
billiard
note,
room
Madame,
well
it is
before
in
the
your
gong.
hand.
And your
Bryce
book
can
on
vouch
the
for
criminal mind, it contains
Leonard
phrases,
Bryce, the
ideas
solicitor,
that
looked
echo
up
the
from his
manuscript
portfolio,
page. His expression
You were in
dour.
the
library at 2 o'clock.
I
You
told
saw
you,
Clara's
Poirot,
journal,
I was
and you
with
wrote
Tarrant
this
until
note
I
to
went
warn
to my
Bryce.
study at 3.
You did not kill
He
Pippin,
was in
but
the
you
billiard
knew of
room
his
when
plan,
I
and you
left.
did nothing to stop
Poirot
it.
nodded,
his expression
The room
unreadable.
was silent.
And
The
you,
weight of
Dr.
Poirot's
Carver,
words sinking
you were
in.
in the library at 2 o'clock
Dr.
reading, and
Carver's
then in the
shoulders slumped,
conservatory at
tears
2:30, welling in her eyes.
Did you
see this gardener,
this
Tom Wheeler, near the window?
I couldn't let it come out.
Dr.
I was
Evelyn
young,
Carver's eyes
naive,
met Poirot's.
when Bryce took
her
my
gaze
work.
steady. I let him
I
because
saw
I
a
believed
shadow,
I
as
had
I
no
mentioned,
choice.
around 2:15.
When I learned Sir Reginald
It
had
could
the
have been the
manuscript,
gardener,
I
but I
panicked.
didn't see his
I warned
face.
Bryce, but I didn't know
I
he'd
was
kill the
focused
cat.
on my
I swear
book
until I left for the
Poirot
conservatory.
nodded,
his expression grave. Poirot turned to Sir
Merci,
Reginald,
madame.
who stood rigid by
Your
the fireplace.
confession
completes
his
the
brandy
puzzle.
glass still
The
untouched.
manuscript, it was your creation,
Sir Reginald,
and its
your
truth
announcement
drove
yesterday.
this tragedy. It was to reveal a manuscript.
Hastings,
Yes. Stunned, leaned toward
discovery
Poirot
that would shake
Good
the
Lord,
literary
Poirot,
world.
you knew all along.
Tell me, was
Dr.
this
Carver the
manuscript
original
in the
author?
library?
Poirot's
Could someone
eyes
have been
twinkled.
searching for it?
The little gray cells,
Sir Reginald's
Hastings,
jaw
they see
tightened,
the
his
unseen.
voice low.
The motive,
The
it was not
manuscript
just
is
Bryce's
safe,
fear,
Mr.
but
Poirot,
Madame
locked
Carver's
in my
shame.
private study.
The truth, no
It
one
is
could
now
have
free.
accessed it without my knowledge.
As the
guests absorbed the revelation,
fail
the
to
air
see
seemed
what
to
this
lighten,
has to
the
do with
mystery
the dead
fully
cat.
unraveled. Poirot's smile
Ash
was
was
enigmatic,
enigmatic,
though scarred. Everything is
ready to
connected,
heal.
Sir Reginald. Chapter 14. The cat, the
final
manuscript,
threads.
the open window, the twilight cast
They
a
are
soft,
threads in a
melancholic
tapestry.
glow over Ashwood
And I
Hall.
will weave them together.
Its golden hues,
Inspector
softening
Grayson
the sharp
cleared his
edges
throat,
of the
clearly
estate's
impatient.
grand facade. We're taking Wheeler
The
to the
revelation
station
of
for
Dr.
questioning.
Evelyn
Carver's
If you've
role
got
as the
nothing
original
concrete,
author
Mr.
of
Poirot,
the stolen
I suggest
manuscript,
you let us do our
coupled
job.
with Leonard Bryce's
Poirot
confession to
inclined his
Pippin's
head.
murder. Of
Had
course,
brought
Inspector,
the mystery to a
question your
close.
gardener, but I
Yet
too
the
will
air
question,
within
and
the
I will
Georgian
observe.
mansion remained
For
heavy
now, I
with
would
the
like to see the
aftershocks
grounds,
of truth.
particularly the area
The guests of
outside
the
the
literary
library
society,
window, once bound by ambition
as
and
Grayson
polite
and his
facades,
constable departed,
now face the raw
Poirot
exposure
beckoned
of their
Hastings
secrets,
to follow him
their
outside.
interactions marked by a
The
quiet,
gardens of
uneasy
Ashwood Hall
truce.
were a labyrinth
Hercule
of manicured
Poirot,
hedges and
ever the
blooming roses.
orchestrator of truth,
But
sensed
Poirot's
that a few
focus was
final
on the
threads
narrow
needed
path
to be
leading
woven
to the
to
library's
complete the tapestry
exterior
of this
window.
intricate case. The ground was soft from recent
Captain
rain, and
Arthur
faint
Hastings
footprints
were
stood in the
visible in the
library where the tragedy
set
had begun,
leading to and from
his
the window.
gaze lingering on the spot where
Interesting.
Pippin's body
Poirot
had been
murmured,
found, kneeling to examine the prints. The blood-stained rug
They
had
are
been
small,
removed,
Hastings,
but the room
and
still
shallow.
felt haunted
Not
by
the
the
boots
events
of a
of the
gardener,
past
I
days,
think,
but something lighter.
He glanced
Perhaps
at Poirot,
a lady who
shoe
stood near
or
the
a
open
man's
window,
with a delicate
his cream
tread.
linen suit pristine.
Hastings frowned.
His mustache crash, a perfect
You don't
arc
really
of
believe
precision.
it's one of the guests, do
The
you?
detective's dark eyes were contemplative,
but this
as
all
if he were
feels
tying the
so
last knots in a complex
theatrical.
puzzle. Poirot rose, brushing his hands. Hastings said,
Theatrical,
his voice low and deliberate.
You've done it again.
The killer wishes us to
Unravel
look at
this
the mystery
garden
that
that chased
seemed
the
impenetrable.
obvious.
Bryce,
little
Dr.
gray
Carver,
cells,
Lady
tell me
Beatrice,
otherwise.
it's all come together.
Come, let us speak to this
But
Tom
I can't
Wheeler
shake the
before
feeling there's
police take
something
him
more you're
away.
not telling me. Is
They
the
found
case
the
truly
gardener near
finished?
the stables, a lanky
Poirot
young
turned,
man
his
with a
smile
sullen
faint but
expression,
warm.
his hands shoved
Mon
deep
ami,
in his
you
pocket.
are perceptive as always.
Inspector
The
Grayson
case,
was
it is
already
resolved.
questioning him.
Bryce killed the
But
cat.
Poirot
Dr. Carver
interjected
concealed
with
her
his
past,
usual finesse.
and Lady Beatrice protected a secret
Monsieur
out of
Wheeler, a
loyalty.
moment. You were near
Yet
the
there is
library
one
yesterday.
final
Yes.
thread, a
Tell me,
question of
did you
intent
see
that must be
anyone
addressed.
else?
The
There,
truth, it
perhaps
is not
someone who
just
did
about
not
the
belong.
crime, but about why it was
Wheeler
allowed
shifted
to
uncomfortably,
happen.
his eyes darting to the ground.
Hastings frowned. I
Puzzled.
told the inspector I was
Why
trimming
it
the
was
hedges.
allowed.
I didn't see
You mean
nothing,
Sir
and I didn't
Reginald?
touch that cat.
He's been cagey
It
about that
scratched me
manuscript
once,
from
sure,
the
but
start.
I wouldn't kill it. Do you
Poirot's
think he
gaze
knew
was
more than he
piercing.
let on?
And the window, monsieur,
Poirot's
did you see
eyes
it
twinkled.
open? Wheeler hesitated, then
Précisément,
nodded.
Hastings.
Sir Reginald,
it
he is
was
the
open
pivot
when I
around
passed
which
by
this drama
around
turns.
2:30, but I didn't
Come,
go
let us
near
gather
it.
the guests one
I
last
swear
time.
Poirot nodded, his
There is a
expression
final
unreadable.
act to play.
Merci,
They
Monsieur
returned
Wheeler.
to the drawing
You have
room,
been most
where
helpful.
the remaining guests,
As
Sir
they walked back
Reginald,
to the house,
Lady
Hastings
Beatrice,
couldn't
Clara
contain his
Henshaw,
curiosity.
Julian Tarrant, and Dr.
Poirot,
Carver,
you don't think Wheeler
sat
did
in
it,
a
do you?
subdued circle.
He seems nervous,
their
but not
faces
guilty.
reflecting a mix of relief
Poirot's
and
eyes
exhaustion.
twinkled.
The
Nervous,
grandeur of
yes,
the room,
but guilty.
with its polished
No.
oak and crystal
He is a
chandeliers,
distraction,
seemed to
Hastings.
underscore
A red
the
herring to
fragility
divert
of
us
their
from the true
composure.
path.
The killer
Poirot
is clever,
stepped
but
into
they
the
have
center.
underestimated
His small
Hercule
stature
Poirot,
commanding the
the
space as if he
footprints,
were
the
a
manuscript
conductor
before
before an
an
orchestra.
orchestra.
They all point to someone within
Mesdames et
these
messieurs,
walls, and I will
Poirot
find
began, his
them.
voice clear and resonant.
The morning wore on.
The mystery
And
of
Ashwood Hall
Pippin's death
seemed
is
to tighten
solved,
its
and the
grip,
guilty have
as if the very
confessed.
stones
Monsieur
were
Bryce,
conspiring
he
to
killed
keep
to
the
protect
truth
a
hidden.
stolen legacy. Chapter 6. Madame Carver,
A clue
she
in
hid her
detail.
authorship out of
The
shame.
midday sun hung high
Madame
over
Ashwood
Ashwood
Hall,
She
its
concealed
rays
her
filtering
knowledge
through
to
the
shield
tall
her
windows
husband's
of the
reputation.
reputation, where the guests of
But
the
there is
literary
one question
society
that
sat in
remains.
uneasy silence.
Why did Sir Reginald,
The death of the
Pippin,
guardian of this
Clara
manuscript
Henshaw's
allows such a
beloved
secret to
tabby
fester,
had cast
knowing
a
it
long
could
shadow
ignite
over
such
the estate.
tragedy. And the arrival of
Sir
Hercule
Reginald's face
Poirot
darkened,
had only
his hands
deepened
gripping
the
the
arms
sense
of
of
his
unease.
chair. The
Poirot,
police, under
you've
Inspector
gone too
Grayson's
far.
brusque command,
I've told
had
you
taken
the
the
manuscript
gardener
was my
Tom
discovery,
Wheeler
my
for
responsibility.
questioning. I plan to
But
reveal it
Poirot's
carefully to avoid
insistent
that the
scandal.
true culprit
You've no
was
right
among
to
the
accuse me
guests.
of anything.
Kept the air thick
Poirot's
with
gaze was
suspicion.
unyielding,
his tone soft but
Captain
piercing.
Arthur Hastings, seated
Accuse
near a
Sir
mahogany
Reginald
table,
No.
watched Poirot with
I
a
seek
mix
only
of
to understand.
admiration and impatience.
You discovered the manuscript,
knowing the
but
detective's
you knew its
methodical
true
mind
author was
Madame
already
Carver,
piecing
and you
together
knew
the
Bryce had
puzzle.
stolen it.
Poirot
Yet you
kept
stood
it
near a
locked away,
bookcase,
teasing
his
its
small
revelation
frame
to this
dwarfed by the
society.
towering shelves.
Why?
Yet his presence
Was it to
dominated
expose
the
Bryce
room.
or to wield power
In his
over him?
gloved hand,
Lady
he held
Beatrice's
the
voice
blood-stained
was sharp,
manuscript
her composure
page he had
frayed.
found in the library.
Reginald,
Its
tell him
delicate
it's
script
nonsense.
glinting
You meant
faintly
no
under
harm.
the
You
sunlight.
wanted to restore justice to
His
the
dark
literary
eyes,
world.
sharp as a hawk's,
Poirot raised a
moved from
hand
the page
to the
expression grave.
faces of the guests,
Justice,
each of whom
madame?
seemed to shrink under
Perhaps.
his gaze. But I
The
believe
room
Sir
was a
Reginald had
tableau of
another
tension.
motive. Lady
The
Beatrice
manuscript,
Ashwood sat
it was
with
not
her
just a
hands
literary
folded tightly.
find, it
Her
was a
lips
weapon.
thin line. Sir Reginald,
Reginald,
you knew
stood by
Bryce's
the window,
secret, and you
his
used
face
it
a
to
mask
control
of
him,
controlled
to ensure his
agitation.
loyalty as your solicitor.
Julian Tarrant, the novelist,
planned to
fidgeted
reveal
with
it
a
not
cigarette.
for justice,
Dr.
but for
Evelyn
your
Carver
own
observed
ambition,
with her usual
to cement your
clinical
legacy
detachment.
as the man who
Clara
uncovered a
Henshaw
literary
clutched a
scandal.
handkerchief,
her eyes
Sir
red,
Reginald's face
and
pale,
Leonard
his voice
Bryce,
low.
the solicitor,
That's
scribbled
preposterous,
furiously in his
Poirot.
notebook.
I
as if
wanted to right a
shield
wrong,
himself
to
from
give credit where it
scrutiny.
was due.
I didn't know
Mesdames
Bryce would
et
go so
messieurs,
far as to kill.
Poirot began, his voice
Poirot's
clear and
eyes
precise.
gleamed. The
Did
death
you
of
not,
the
Sir
cat.
Reginald?
It is a tragedy.
You left
yes,
your study
but
at
it
2
is
o'clock
also
on the
a
day of the
clue,
crime,
a
knowing
thread
Clara
in the
had seen the
tapestry of a larger
manuscript.
crime.
You walked the
This
gardens,
page,
but you were were seen near the library by the maid. It was found near the body, stained with shadow appeared at the window. It is handwritten in a script most elegant, and it speaks of suspected Bryce's desperation. And does anyone recognize it? To unfold, perhaps to force his hand. Clara
gasped,
Henshaw's
her
eyes
handkerchief
flickered
falling
to
to
the
her lap.
page, but she quickly
Sir
looked away,
Reginald.
her hands trembling. "Is that true?" Sir Reginald
Did you
cleared
know
his
Pippin
throat,
would die?
his voice low.
Sir Reginald's shoulders slumped, his
As
voice
I said,
barely
Mr.
audible.
Poirot, my manuscript is locked in my study.
I
That
suspected
page
Bryce
is
was
not
desperate,
mine, nor do I know
saw him
whose
near
it
the
is.
library that day acting strangely.
Poirot's smile was faint,
but I never
almost
imagined he killed the
imperceptible.
cat.
Not
I thought
yours,
he'd
Sir
confront Clara,
Reginald.
perhaps threaten her.
Perhaps.
But
I
it is
wanted the
curious,
truth
no?
to come out, but
A
not
page
like
left
this.
in disarray near a murdered
Poirot
cat.
nodded, his expression
And the letter
somber.
opener, clean of
Merci,
fingerprints,
Sir
yet
Reginald.
driven with precision. Your silence,
These
these
are
are
not
not the
malice,
acts
but
of a
ambition.
careless hand. You
They
allowed
are
the spark of
deliberate,
this
calculated.
tragedy to ignite, and now
Hastings
you must
leaned
bear its
forward,
weight.
his
curiosity piqued. The room was silent.
Poirot,
The
do you
guests
think the
absorbing
page
the
is
final
connected to
revelation.
Sir Reginald's announcement?
Dr. Carver's eyes were downcast.
He said it
her
would
voice
shake
soft.
the literary
I should have
world.
spoken up years ago when
Could
Bryce
someone
took my
have
work.
wanted to stop him?
If I had, none of
Poirot's
this would have
eyes
happened.
gleamed.
An
Julian
excellent
Terence,
question,
his cigarette
Hastings.
unlit, shook his head.
The announcement, the
We all
manuscript,
have secrets,
the cat,
don't we?
They are linked, I am certain.
But to let a cat
But
die
the
for
link,
them,
it is not
it's
yet
madness.
clear. Clara's
Let us
voice
examine
trembled, but she
another
spoke with
detail.
resolve. He moved
Pipin's
to the
gone,
center
but
of
his
the
death
room,
brought
his
the
gaze
truth.
settling on
I'll
Clara
write again,
Henshaw.
Mr.
Poirot, for him. Miss Henshaw,
I promise.
you
Poirot's
said
smile was
Pippin
gentle.
hissed at Mr. Bryce once when he
Mademoiselle,
startled
your
him.
courage honors your muse.
Tell me, let his
Where
memory
did this occur
inspire
and
you?
when?
Clara
Hastings,
hesitated,
watching
her
from
voice
the
soft.
sidelines,
felt a pang
It was
of
2 days
admiration
ago in
for
the
his
conservatory.
Mr.
You've
Bryce
tied
came
it
in
all
suddenly,
together,
carrying his
Poirot.
portfolio,
He
and
said
Pippin
quietly.
jumped. He hissed, but
Sir
it was
Reginald's
nothing serious.
ambition,
Bryce's
just a
crime,
cat's
Carver's
instinct.
silence. It's all connected.
Bryce
looked up, his expression
Poirot's
defensive.
gaze turned to the window
As I
where
said,
the twilight
cat
deepened.
was underfoot. I meant no
Hastings.
harm. I was
The
simply
threads they are
retrieving
woven
some
and the
documents for
tapestry is
Sir
complete.
Reginald. Poirot nodded,
But the cost,
his fingers
it is
brushing
always
his mustache.
high.
The truth,
It
documents,
frees,
Monsieur Bryce,
but it also
most
wounds.
interesting.
As
And
the
where
guests
were you
dispersed,
at
their
2:15
footsteps
yesterday
echoing
when
in the
Dr.
grand
Carver
hall?
saw a shadow
Inspector
near
Grayson
the library
approached,
window?
his
expression one of grudging
Bryce's
respect.
pen
Paused, his eyes narrowing.
Mr.
Poirot, I was
You've
in the
done it
billiard
again.
room, as I told you.
Sir
Reginald's
admitted
Tarrant
to
and the others
withholding the
can confirm
manuscript's
it.
full significance.
Julian Tarrant
It's not a
nodded,
crime,
though his usual charm
but it's a
seemed
lesson.
strained. We'll close the case
That's
with
right.
Bryce's arrest. Bryce was with us
Poirot
until he
inclined
went to
his
his
head.
study just before
Merci,
3.
Inspector.
The law
Poirot
it has
turned
its
to
justice,
Doctor.
and I, Hercule Poirot,
Carver,
have mine. Whose calm demeanor contrasted with the
evening
evening settled
tension.
over Ashwood Hall. And you,
Its
madam,
secrets laid
you
bare.
saw this shadow
Its
at
wounds
2:15
beginning
to heal in the
Can
soft
you describe
light of
it
truth.
further?
Was it tall? Chapter 15.
Short?
Moving quickly or
The
slowly?
departure.
Dr. Carver's
morning
eyes
mist
met
clung to the
Poirot's
rolling
unflinching
lawns
of Ashwood Hall.
Softening
It was
the
fleeting,
sharp
lines
Mr.
of
Poirot,
the Georgian estate,
a
as the
figure
sun
perhaps
rose,
average height,
casting
moving
quickly
pale,
toward the
hopeful
hedges.
light
I couldn't
over the
see
Sussex
details.
countryside.
It was just a silhouette
The events
against
of
the
the
past
window.
days. The brutal
Poirot's
killing of
expression
Pippin was
was
Clara
unreadable,
Henshaw's
but Hastings
cherished
knew that
Tabby.
look.
The
The
exposure
detective
of
was
Leonard Bryce's
cataloging
every
crime,
word, Dr. Evelyn
searching for
Carver's hidden
inconsistencies.
authorship, and Sir Reginald
He moved
Ashwood's
to the side
complicity in
table
allowing
where
the
a small
tragedy to
silver
unfold.
tray
held a
had
collection
left
of
the
objects
guests
of the literary
a
society
pen,
subdued.
a
Pair of their once
spectacles,
vibrant
and a single
gathering,
pearl
now a
earring,
somber
its luster
reflection of
dulled
human
by a faint
frailty.
smear of
dust. The grand halls,
Poirot
with their
picked up the
polished
earring,
oak
holding
and
it to the
gleaming
light.
chandeliers,
This
seemed
earring,
to sigh
he said,
with relief. It
as
was
the
found
mystery
near the
reached
library desk,
its
hidden beneath
conclusion.
the book. Yet the
Does
scars
it belong
of
to
truth
anyone
lingered
here?
in the air. Lady Beatrice's hand instinctively
Arthur
touched her
Hastings
ear,
stood
then
on the
dropped
terrace.
quickly. His
Not
suitcase
mine,
packed and ready,
she said, her voice
his
cool.
eyes tracing the distant
Perhaps
horizon
it belongs
where the
to one
mist
of the
met
maids.
sky.
The
Clara
weight of
Henshaw
the case
shook her
had
head.
settled,
but a quiet
I don't wear
melancholy
earrings,
tugged
Mr.
at him. Poirot, my ears aren't
A
pierced.
sense
That the resolution,
Dr.
though
Carver
just,
tilted
had
her
come at
head,
a cost.
her
expression curious. He glanced at
It's not
Hercule
mine
Poirot,
either.
who stood beside him,
But it's a fine
immaculate
piece,
in his
expensive,
cream
I'd
linen
say.
suit, his
Not
mustache
something
a
a maid
perfect
would
arc
wear.
of precision. Poirot's gaze
The little
lingered on
Belgian
Lady
detective's
Beatrice, but he
dark
said
eyes were
nothing,
contemplative,
slipping the earring
his
into his
small
frame,
pocket.
exuding a calm authority
Merci,
that had guided
madame.
them through the storm
This earring,
of
it is a
secrets.
small thing. cunning but small
Poirot,
things often
hasting
lead
to
said,
great
adjusting his
truths.
hat. "It's over, isn't it?" The room fell silent. The
Bryce
weight
is
of
in
Poirot's
custody,
words
Doctor.
settling over the
Carver's
guests. Truth is out, and Sir Reginald's
Hastings,
ambitions
watching
have been
closely,
laid noticed
bare.
a subtle shift in
Yet
their
I
demeanor.
can't
Help feeling there's a shadow
Lady
over
Beatrice's
this place
fingers
even
tightened
now.
on her chair.
Poirot's cigarette trembled slightly and Bryce's pen scratched more rapidly. Mon ami, you are correct. Poirot was stirring the waters, but it also was rising to the surface. Ashwood Hall. It will bear the memory of this tragedy as they stepped into the hall for a moment's privacy. But the truth, that it is also a balm. Do you think it's Lady Beatrice's? In time. She touched her ear. Hastings nodded. His thoughts
Poirot's
drifted to the
eyes
guests
twinkled.
they were leaving behind.
You observe, Hastings, and that
Clara
is good.
Henshaw, though devastated by
observation
Pippin's
must be
loss,
paired with
had found a
logic.
quiet resolve.
The earring, it may belong to Lady
her
Beatrice,
cat's
or it
memory.
may be another red herring.
Dr. Evelyn
What matters
Carver,
is this.
her past
It was
as
the
placed
true author
or
of the
dropped
stolen manuscript
in the library
exposed,
near the crime,
had retreated into introspection.
and that is no accident.
Her scholarly pride
They returned to
tempered
the
by
drawing
humility.
room where Poirot addressed
Lady
the group
Beatrice
once more.
Ashwood, whose silence had
I
enabled
have
Bryce's
one final
crime
question for
faced
now.
the ruin of her social
Sir
standing.
Reginald, your
Her
announcement
loyalty to
yesterday,
her husband
it was
now
to
a
reveal a
bittersweet
manuscript,
burden.
yes?
A
Sir
manuscript
Reginald,
that could
his grand
redefine
plans
our
for
understanding of
glory
literature
thwarted seemed diminished.
Can you tell
His
us more
authority
about its
overshadowed
contents,
by
or
his
why
own
someone
hubris?
might wish to suppress it?
Julian Tarrant, the novelist,
Sir
had
Reginald's
slipped
face
back
darkened,
into his
voice
charming
sharp.
facade.
I've
Though
told
his
you,
restless
Poirot,
eyes
the
betrayed a
manuscript is
newfound
safe.
caution.
Its contents are my
You know,
concern,
Poirot,
and I'll reveal them
Hastings
when
said,
I'm
his
ready.
voice
Not
soft.
before. I thought this was
Poirot
just about a
inclined his
cat
head
at first, a
unperturbed.
cruel act, but simple. Very well, Sir Reginald,
You saw
but
the
I
layers
warn you
from the
all.
start, didn't
Secrets, they are like
The
shadows,
plagiarism,
the ambition,
they
the
follow
fear.
you.
And they
Poirot's
grow
eyes
longer in
twinkled,
the
though
light.
his tone was grave.
I will find the truth, and I will
Hastings,
not be misled. The cat, he was the spark,
As the guests
but the fire,
dispersed,
it was
their
fueled
murmurs
by
filling
human
the hall.
desires. Inspector
Greed,
Grayson approached,
shame,
his expression
pride.
skeptical. The manuscript,
Found anything
it was the
useful,
heart
Mr.
of
Poirot?
the matter, and
Or are you
each
still
guest,
chasing
they
shadows?
played their part in its
Poirot's
shadow.
smile
was serene. The little gray
Shadows,
cells, they
Inspector.
see what the heart hides.
No.
I chase
They
the
walked
truth toward
and
the
this
waiting
earring,
car,
this page,
the gravel,
they are lights
crunching
that guide
beneath
me.
their feet. You question your guard,
The butler,
but I, solemn but efficient,
questioned
loaded their
the
luggage,
heart.
and the driver stood ready.
Grayson
His cap
snorted
tipped, but
respectfully.
Poirot was already moving toward
they
the
passed the
library,
rose
beckoning
garden,
Hastings
Clara
to
Henshaw
follow. Emerged from
Come,
the conservatory, her face
There is
pale
one more
but
detail to
composed.
examine.
A small
The
notebook
bookshelf
in her
near
hand.
the window.
I
Mr.
noticed a faint
Poirot,
mark, she called,
scratch
hurrying
that may
toward
tell
them.
us more.
I wanted to see you
In the
before
library,
you
Poirot
left.
knelt by
I've
the
started
bookshelf, his
writing
fingers
again,
tracing
a
a small,
poem, almost
Pippin.
imperceptible scratch
It's
on the
not
wood,
much,
just
but
above the
it's a
floor.
start.
Regardez,
I wanted to
Hastings,
thank
he
you.
said, pointing, for giving me
This
closure.
mark,
It is fresh.
Poirot took her
and
hand.
it is at the height of a
His
cat's
touch
claw.
gentle.
Pippin, perhaps,
Mademoiselle,
in his
your
final
courage
moments
has
left us
been
the
the
light
clue.
in this darkness. Hastings frowned,
Write for
puzzled.
Pippin,
write for yourself,
claw
and
mark.
let the truth guide
But how
your
does
pen.
that
help us? You have my
Poirot
admiration.
rose,
His expression grave. Clara's eyes
It
shimmered
tells
with
us that
tears, but
Pippin
she
was
smiled.
not
killed where he was found. I will, Mr. Poirot. He was moved,
Safe travels.
Hastings, after the act. As they climbed into the
killer,
car,
they
Hastings
staged
glanced
the
back
scene,
at
but
the
they
estate.
could not erase
its
every
ivy-clad
trace.
walls glowing
This
in
scratch,
the morning
this
light.
earring,
this page. Do you think they'll
There
recover
are
the
Poirot,
threads of truth? And
Clara,
I will follow
Dr.
them.
Carver,
The Ashwoods. As the sun climbed
Poirot's
higher,
gaze followed
Ashwood
his.
Hall seemed
His
to pulse
expression
with
thoughtful.
secrets, each clue a step
Recover,
closer to
Hastings?
the heart of the mystery. In time. The human
Chapter
spirit,
7.
it is resilient, but it
More
carries
lies.
its scars. Surface.
Clara will find
the
solace
afternoon
in her
light
poetry,
filtered
Doctor.
through the tall windows
Carver
of
in her
Ashwood Hall,
truth,
and the
casting
Ashwoods they will
intricate
rebuild
patterns
on the polished
though their
floors
pride
of the
is
drawing
wounded.
room. The elegance of the
manuscript, it will
estate
remain
with its
locked
ornate
away.
chandeliers and
A
leather-bound
secret that has
books
done enough harm.
seemed to mock the
car
growing
rolled
unease
down the drive,
among the
guests
estate
of the
receding
literary
into the society. Hastings leaned back.
The brutal death
His mind
of Pippin,
replaying
Clara
Clara Henshaw's cherished
blood-stained
tabby had
manuscript
shattered
page,
the
the
veneer
pearl
of
earring,
civility,
the scratch
on the bookshelf,
and
the
Hercule
note
Poirot's
behind
her
relentless probing had
You
begun
tied
to
it all
unravel
together,
the carefully
Poirot,
woven
he
lies
said.
of those present. A note of admiration in
Captain
his voice.
Arthur
Hastings,
the
seated
earring,
near a velvet
the journal, the
upholstered
shadow,
sofa, watched
every
the scene
detail
with
mattered.
a mix of fascination
Poirot's
and apprehension.
smile was modest.
Knowing that Poirot's
The
little
details,
gray
Hastings, they are the
cells were
threads of
closing
truth.
in on the truth.
Without
them, the tapestry is
Poirot
incomplete. Stood near a grand
But it is
piano.
not the
His
details
cream-linen
alone
suit
that solve the
immaculate.
mystery.
His mustache,
It
a
is the
perfect
understanding
arc
of
the
the
human
precision.
heart. In his
Bryce
hand,
sought to
he
bury
held the
his
pearl
shame,
earring he had
Carver
found
her
in
past,
the library, its
Sir
delicate
Reginald, his
luster
ambition.
catching the light.
The cat, his dark eyes, was the victim of their fears, lingering on each guest. The car passed through the gates of Ashwood Hall, the countryside unfolding before them. Lady Beatrice Ashwood sat with her hands Hastings clasped felt a weight lift, her regal the melancholy lingering at the edges. What now, Poirot? Sir Reginald back to London to quieter days, his face etched Poirot's eyes gleamed with quiet amusement. The mantle. Quieter Hastings, the novelist paced, but the world is full of mysteries, and the little grey cells, they are never at rest, while Dr. Evelyn Carver maintained let us enjoy the journey, calm, and let Ashwood Hall with fade into memory. Clara as the car sped toward London, still fragile, clutched, revealing a clear sky, and Leonard Bryce, Poirot leaned back, his hands hunched over his faint smile, playing his pen scratching nervously. The truth, mon ami, mesdames et messieurs, it is a journey, not a destination, clear and commanding. And I, the death of the Poirot, am its it is not an isolated act. It is a road stretched ahead, and Ashwood to something greater vanished into the distance. And now, as I examine the threads of this mystery, I find that some of you have not been entirely truthful. Lies, they are like weeds. They choke the truth unless they are uprooted. A ripple of unease passed through the room. Lady Beatrice's lips tightened, but she said nothing. Poirot held up the earring, letting it dangle between his fingers. This earring found in the library near the scene of the crime. I asked if it belonged to anyone, and all denied it. Yet, Lady Beatrice, when I showed it, your hand moved to your ear. A reflex, perhaps. Lady Beatrice's eyes flashed with indignation. I told you, Mr. Poirot, it is not mine. I touched my ear because I was adjusting my hair. You read too much into simple gestures. Poirot's smile was serene but piercing. Perhaps, madame, but the mind, it betrays us in small ways. Let us explore another matter. Mr. Tarrant, you said you were in the billiard room until 3:15, yet Lady Beatrice saw you on the terrace at 2 o'clock, and you admit to being there for 5 or 10 minutes. But Miss Langley, one of the younger writers, tells me she saw you leave the billiard room at 1:45 and not return until nearly 3. Where were you, monsieur, for over an hour? Tarrant froze, his cigarette halfway to his lips. That's nonsense, he said, his voice sharp. Miss Langley must be mistaken. I stepped out for a smoke, as I said, and returned to the billiard room. Bryce was there, he can confirm it. Bryce looked up, his expression guarded. I was in the billiard room, yes, but I didn't keep a clock on Tarrant. He was in and out. I assumed he was smoking or meeting someone. Tarrant's face reddened. Meeting someone? What are you implying, Bryce? Poirot raised a hand, silencing the exchange. Enough, monsieur. The truth, it emerges slowly, but it emerges. Let us turn to another matter. Miss Henshaw, you said Pippin hissed at Mr. Bryce in the conservatory 2 days ago. But the maid tells me she saw you and Mr. Bryce in a heated discussion that same day near the library. What was the nature of this discussion? Clara's eyes widened, her hands twisting the handkerchief. It was nothing, Mr. Poirot. A misunderstanding. I had asked Mr. Bryce about some legal matters concerning my poetry. He was dismissive. Bryce's pen stopped, his voice cold. Dismissive. I advised you as best I could, Miss Henshaw. Your questions about royalties were vague, and I told you to consult a proper agent, that was all. Poirot's gaze shifted to Dr. Carver, who had been watching the exchange with quiet intensity. And you, Madam Carver, you are a student of the human mind. Tell me, have you observed anything among your fellow guests that suggests deception? Dr. Carver's lips curved in a faint smile. Deception is common, Mr. Poirot. People hide their motives, their fears. I've noticed Mr. Tarrant's restlessness, Miss Henshaw's fragility, Mr. Bryce's defensiveness. But as to who killed the cat, I have no theories, only observations. Poirot nodded, his expression unreadable. Merci, madame. Your observations are most valuable. And now, Sir Reginald, let us return to your manuscript. You say it is locked in your study, yet a page, handwritten and blood-stained, was found in the library. Could someone have accessed your study, perhaps to steal or copy this manuscript? Sir Reginald's face darkened, his voice sharp. Impossible, Poirot. My study is locked, and I carry the only key. No one could have entered without my knowledge. Poirot's eyes gleamed. No one, Sir Reginald. Yet the maid tells me she saw you leave your study at 2 o'clock yesterday, and you did not return until just before your speech. Where were you during that time? Sir Reginald's jaw tightened. I was in the gardens, walking alone. I needed air before my announcement. I saw no one, and no one saw me. A heavy silence fell, broken only by the faint ticking of the grandfather clock. Hastings, watching from his seat, felt a chill. Poirot was peeling back layers, exposing cracks in their alibis. The detective moved to the piano, where a small stack of papers had been left by one of the guests. He lifted one, a letter addressed to Sir Reginald, its seal broken. This letter, Poirot said, holding it up, was found among the library papers. It is from a publisher, expressing concern about a manuscript you sent them. A manuscript they describe as potentially explosive. Tell me, Sir Reginald, does this concern the same manuscript you plan to reveal? Sir Reginald's face paled, but he recovered quickly. That is a private matter, Poirot. It has no bearing on this incident. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. Private, perhaps, but relevant, I think. Lies, they multiply, and secrets, they fester. I ask you all to consider, what are you hiding? For the truth, it will not remain hidden for long. As the guests exchanged uneasy glances, Inspector Grayson entered, his expression grim. Mr. Poirot, we've questioned Wheeler. He sticks to his story. No involvement, just trimming hedges. No evidence ties him to the library, but we're keeping him in custody for now. Poirot nodded, unsurprised. Merci, Inspector. Your gardener, he is not our killer. The true culprit is here in this room, and they are growing careless. The earring, the manuscript page, the scratch on the bookshelf, these are not accidents. They are mistakes. Lady Beatrice stood, her voice sharp. This is intolerable, Mr. Poirot. You accuse us without proof, stirring up suspicion. I demand you stop this at once. Poirot's eyes met hers, calm and unyielding. Demand, madame? I do not accuse. I inquire. And I will continue until the truth is revealed. For now I suggest you all reflect on your words, for they will be examined closely. As the guests dispersed, their footsteps heavy with tension, Hastings followed Poirot to the hall. You're pushing them hard, Poirot, he said, his voice low. That letter, the earring, do you think they're connected to the manuscript? Poirot's expression was grave. Connected, Hastings? Oui. The manuscript is the heart of this mystery, and the cat's death, it is a warning to protect it, or to silence it. The lies we have uncovered today, they are but the beginning. The killer is watching, and they are afraid. The afternoon waned, and Ashwood Hall seemed to tighten its grip, as if the walls themselves were conspiring to guard the secrets within. Chapter 8. The Emotional Turning Point. The late afternoon sun cast a golden glow over Ashwood Hall, its rays filtering through the tall windows of the drawing room, where the guests of the literary society sat in a state of uneasy anticipation. The brutal killing of Pippin, Clara Henshaw's beloved Tabby, had fractured the veneer of civility, and Hercule Poirot's relentless questioning had exposed cracks in the carefully constructed alibis of those present. The air was thick with tension, the elegance of the estate now a backdrop to a drama of suspicion and fear. Captain Arthur Hastings, seated near a marble-topped console, felt a knot of apprehension in his chest, sensing that the mystery was reaching a critical juncture. Hercule Poirot stood near the center of the room, his cream linen suit immaculate, his mustache a perfect arc of precision. In his hand he held the blood-stained manuscript page and the pearl earring, two clues that had become the focal points of his investigation. His dark eyes, sharp and unyielding, swept over the assembled guests, each of whom seemed to shrink under his scrutiny. Lady Beatrice Ashwood sat rigidly, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. Sir Reginald stood by the fireplace, his face a mask of barely contained frustration. Julian Tarrant, the novelist, stubbed out his cigarette with a trembling hand, while Dr. Evelyn Carver maintained her clinical composure, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. Clara Henshaw, pale and fragile, clutched a handkerchief, her grief palpable, and Leonard Bryce, the solicitor, sat with his portfolio open, his pen poised but unmoving. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice clear and resonant, "we have reached a moment of truth. The death of the cat, it was not a mere act of cruelty, it was a message, a warning. And now, as the lies unravel, I sense that one of you is ready to break, to reveal a truth that cannot be contained. I ask you to speak, for the weight of silence is heavy, and the truth, it will find its way." A heavy silence followed, the ticking of the grandfather clock echoing like a heartbeat. Hastings watched, his breath catching, as Clara Henshaw's shoulders began to tremble. She rose unsteadily, her handkerchief falling to the floor, her voice breaking as she spoke. "Mr. Poirot, I can't bear it any longer. Pippin, he wasn't just my pet, he was my confidant, my muse. And I know why he was killed. It was because of me, because of what I know." The room erupted in gasps. Lady Beatrice's eyes widened and Sir Reginald's hand tightened on the mantel. Tarrant froze, his cigarette forgotten, while Dr. Carver leaned forward, her expression a mix of curiosity and caution. Bryce's pen dropped, his face pale. Poirot's gaze softened, though his focus remained razor-sharp. "Mademoiselle Henshaw, you have courage to speak. Tell me, what is it that you know, and how does it relate to this tragedy?" Clara's eyes filled with tears, her voice trembling but resolute. "It's about the manuscript, the one Sir Reginald was going to reveal. I saw it, Mr. Poirot. 2 days ago in his study. I wasn't supposed to be there. I was looking for a book and the door was ajar. The manuscript was on his desk and I read a page. It wasn't just a literary work. It was a confession, a secret that could ruin someone. I didn't mean to pry, but Pippin was with me and he knocked over a glass and Sir Reginald came in. He was furious, but I swore I wouldn't tell anyone." Sir Reginald's face darkened, his voice sharp. "Clara, that's preposterous. You had no business in my study and you certainly didn't see anything of importance. My manuscript is locked away, as I've said." Poirot raised a hand, his tone calm but firm. "A moment, Sir Reginald. Let Mademoiselle Henshaw continue. What was this confession, mademoiselle? And who did it concern?" Clara hesitated, her eyes darting to the others. "It was about a plagiarism scandal years ago. The manuscript claimed that a famous work, one we all admire, was stolen from another writer, someone unknown. It named names, Mr. Poirot, and it would destroy reputations if it were made public. I think someone killed Pippin to warn me to stay silent." The room exploded in murmurs. Tarrant's face paled, and he lit another cigarette with shaking hands. "That's absurd," he said, his voice strained. "A cat killed over a manuscript, Clara. You're overwrought." Dr. Carver's eyes narrowed. "Miss Henshaw, are you certain of what you saw? The mind can play tricks under stress, and you've been through a great deal." Clara shook her head, her voice rising. "I know what I saw. And I know someone was watching me yesterday before Pippin was killed. I felt it in the gardens. A presence, like someone was following me." Poirot's eyes gleamed, his mind clearly racing. "Most interesting, mademoiselle. And this presence, did you see anyone? Perhaps near the library?" Clara's voice dropped to a whisper. I saw a shadow, Mr. Poirot, just like Dr. Carver did. It was near the library window around 2 o'clock. I thought it was my imagination, but now I'm not so sure. Poirot turned to the group, his expression grave. A shadow seen by 2 witnesses at the same time the library window was opened, and a manuscript glimpsed by Mademoiselle Henshaw that threatens to expose a secret. These are not coincidences, mes amis. They are clues, and they point to a motive. Lady Beatrice stood, her voice icy. This is becoming a farce, Mr. Poirot. Clara is clearly distraught, imagining things. And this talk of a manuscript, it's nonsense. Reginald, tell him. Sir Reginald's jaw tightened. But before he could speak, Bryce interjected, his voice tight. If there's a manuscript, it's Sir Reginald's property, and no one has the right to snoop. Clara, you should have stayed out of his study. Poirot's gaze shifted to Bryce, his tone deceptively mild. Monsieur Bryce, you seem most protective of Sir Reginald's secrets. Tell me, what were you discussing with Mademoiselle Henshaw 2 days ago in the conservatory? The maid described it as heated. Hardly a simple discussion about royalties. Bryce's face reddened, his hands gripping his portfolio. It was nothing, Poirot. She was pestering me about her contracts, and I told her to leave business matters to professionals, that's all. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. All, monsieur? We shall see. For now I thank you, Mademoiselle Henshaw, for your honesty. Your words have illuminated a path, and I will follow it. As Clara sank back into her chair, tears streaming down her face, the other guests exchanged uneasy glances. Hastings, watching from his seat, felt a surge of excitement. Poirot had struck a nerve, and the truth was beginning to surface. The detective moved to the window, his fingers brushing the pearl earring in his pocket. Hastings, Poirot said quietly, stepping aside. You see how the emotions, they betray the heart? Mademoiselle Henshaw has given us a key, a manuscript that threatens ruin, but whose ruin? And why the cat? Hastings frowned, his mind racing. Do you think Clara's telling the truth, Poirot? Or is she deflecting suspicion? Poirot's eyes twinkled. The truth, Hastings, is like a diamond. It has many facets. Clara speaks truth, but perhaps not all of it. The manuscript, the shadow, the earring, these are pieces of a puzzle, and we are close to seeing its shape. As the guests dispersed, their voices hushed with tension. Inspector Grayson approached, his expression skeptical. Mr. Poirot, this talk of manuscripts and shadows is all very dramatic, but we've got nothing concrete. Wheeler's still our best suspect. Poirot's smile was serene. Best, Inspector? Non. Convenient, perhaps. But the truth, it lies with those in this room. Mademoiselle Henshaw's confession has opened a door, and I, Hercule Poirot, will step through it. The afternoon faded into evening, and Ashwood Hall seemed to pulse with the weight of secrets, each revelation drawing the mystery closer to its heart.